attract much needed investment and create jobs in our province.
DAMP Chris Harting says it is time for the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, NG Motshekga, to go. He was speaking during an urgent debate underway in Parliament on the death of the 14 South African soldiers in the DRC. The debate has been called as a matter of public interest. President Cyril Ramaphosa issued a directive for all ministers to take part in the discussion in person. Harting elaborates.
One day we will know the real reason President Cyril Ramaphosa appointed Angie Motshekga as the Minister of Defence. For now, it simply doesn't make sense. I close the quote. We agree. They are right. It doesn't make sense. Let me make this clear. We need to withdraw from the DRC immediately. And Minister Angie Motshekga must go, voluntarily or otherwise. The time for excuses is over.
The Road Traffic Management Corporation and the Hawks have arrested 7 traffic officials suspected of alleged corruption in Tabazimbi in Limpopo. The vehicle examiners and clerks are suspected of taking bribes and selling driver's licenses. They are allegedly part of a syndicate of traffic officials and driving school instructors selling driver's licenses in the province. On Friday, 11 traffic officials and 4 driving school instructors were arrested in Lephalale. RTMC spokesperson Simon Zwane.
These arrests bring to 18 the number of suspects arrested since Operation Combination started on Friday last week. 11 suspects have now been linked to corruption at Lephalale licensing department, and they are all in court today applying for bail.
The Minister of Employment and Labour, Nomakosazana Meth, is expected to recruit 20,000 inspector and enforcement interns over 2 years. This will be done through the department's graduate internship program, which will bring 10,000 interns annually across the country on board. An official advertisement has been published on the Department of Public Service and Administration's vacancy circular. Tabeka Magai is the ministry's spokesperson.
Why this program matters. Expanded compliance efforts. There has been an increase in instances of non-compliance with labour legislation, including underpayment of wages and inadequate health and safety measures. More inspectors will help identify and address these issues promptly. Youth employment and skills development. Thousands of young graduates will benefit from practical on-the-job experience, which helps tackle youth unemployment and promotes economic upliftment in local communities.
And in news just in, the Democratic Alliance has filed papers in the Western Cape High Court to challenge the recently passed Expropriation Act. We'll have details in our next bulletin. In international news, the European Commission says it will react to protect the interest of businesses, workers and consumers after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to impose 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imports. It says the EU sees no justification for such a move, calling it unlawful and economically counterproductive. Luis de Guindos is from the European Central Bank.
I think it is very important to avoid a trade war. I believe there should be talks on the approach the new American administration is taking. I believe it is using economic instruments to achieve political objectives, and obviously this is a change in US policy.
Recapping the top story, the National Ports Authority has signed an agreement with a consortium to develop and manage a 7 billion rand gas terminal in the Richards Bay port. I am Ondila Bonifaz, FM News headlines at 3:30.
In sports this hour, the Proteas lose by 6 wickets to New Zealand in the Tri-Series. PSL looks to expel Royal AM, and Monjani honoured by Ubuntu Sports Diplomacy Award nod. More details at 3:30.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned, and almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
I'm in tourism. I'm running a guest house here. When I switched over to OUTsurance, it was very simple and convenient. I used the savings to subsidize my solar installations. Switching to OUTsurance was one of the best decisions I made insurance-wise, yes.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, the weekend's over and the news cycle continues with what was last week is a continuation this week. We now hear, as you heard on the news, that DA now filing papers regarding certain sections of the Expropriation Act, which has certainly now dominated the headlines for the better part of the last couple of weeks. So we'll hopefully get comment on that. We'll certainly chat to Xolela Mangcu about the ongoing tensions between South Africa and the United States. Remember, he's based in the USA. We'll play some sound of that interview with that Mzwandile Mbeja did with Dr. Imbuyiseni Ndlozi, now the former EFF member. We can say that emphatically so. And there's so many more things. And if you know about, we had that story the other day about this a person who was, in fact, I had a chat with Naledi Pandor, remember a few months ago on the Fireside Chat on Fridays, and I asked to give us a shout out to one person that you think is that a young person that's just magic in terms of what he or she does, and she gave the name of a nuclear scientist by the name of Senamile Masango. Now, we then spoke to Senamile a week later, just reflecting on the fact that Naledi Pandor gave her this endorsement, and now we find out last night that Senamile Masango is no more. She's passed away very suddenly, I understand. Not too sure what the circumstances are. What I can tell you is we will play parts of that interview around 5:20 that I did with her. So listen out for that, right? But let's get to first things first on this crazy Monday that follows a crazy weekend that followed a crazy last week. But let me just say before I do that, what is it that you'd like to get off your chest? What for you moves the National Pulse? Call in to 086 000 2032. And then you can WhatsApp in text or voice note form 0614 104 107. And as always, use the X platform, Elon Musk's platform. Tweet at Ashraf Garda, tweet SAFM Radio, use the hashtag The National Pulse. Add your comments about some of the issues, the ongoing issues in conversation here. So one of them clearly has got to be the issue of Imbuyiseni Ndlozi. Now, we're not going to go into detail now about that interview because that will come up later and we'll play some clips of it after 4 o'clock. But let's get the thoughts of someone who actually did the interview, right? And that's the SABC News political editor, Mzwandile Mbeja. Appreciate you connecting with us on a day that everybody wants to connect with you, I'm pretty sure.
A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and the listeners.
Yeah.
Indeed, it's good speaking to you always.
It's so interesting. I was watching parts of the interview that you did and your opening lines, like, you have this unique way. You're not me, meaning you have a very laid back, friendly, chummy style about yourself, right? Which I think is a way that gets people to, can I say, confess to you in a way that maybe others would not do. So it certainly works for you and the audience that you deliver your content to, isn't it?
I think you need to. In fact, after working to get that interview for a very long time. Not many people would know that I've been working to get that interview for weeks now. Remember when the news surfaced that he was not going to be at the National People's Assembly, their conference, and then there were issues. So then I started to do the work there. And it was difficult. But I guess those attributes that you are mentioning perhaps may have helped, because I had to hold some of those engagement and trying to persuade him, and then somehow it worked out.
Well, I mean, I remember the two of us meeting and probably sitting over coffee for a few minutes at that EFF conference in December, right? And even then you were very clear that there's no way he's going from the EFF to the MK party, although there was lots of speculation around that at that time, right? So interesting that it's come to the fore that clearly that's not the case right now, right? But let's just talk about the timelines. So you said, right, you had to work on it for a good few weeks now, right? Can you share anything about nailing the interview to say from a point of first, I want to do it, to contacting Imoyiseni the first time, to finally him agreeing? I mean, what can you tell us?
Well, when I started to obviously pursue this interview, that's when there was a build-up towards the EFF conference. And there were already voices from the ground forces, that is the EFF membership, which effectively said perhaps Imoyiseni Ndlozi needed to come as the deputy president because Floyd Shivambu had left for MK. And then we knew, obviously through our sources, that someone who may have been preferred at the time was Goldrich Gadi. So clearly you could see that the position of the deputy was going to be contested. But then there was this turn of events, whilst we are trying to suss out that news, this turn of events which says Imoyiseni is somehow not allowed to do any activities. But of course, he kept his cool, so he wouldn't confirm anything to anyone. So we were kept guessing, even when we were checking with Malema himself. So that, Ashraf, kind of like sparked the interest in me, obviously, as a journalist, wanting to know. This guy is very public. His profile is very high up there. And what all of a sudden he's just out, and then what's going to happen? I think the last straw was when he didn't show up at the conference of the EFF. So clearly, even when you didn't suspect anything, you could see that something is amiss here. So I then, from then on, set to find out the truth and started to make those contacts with him. And then it was very difficult, but somehow, I guess, the attributes you mentioned earlier helped a great deal.
As I said, if you tune in, the attributes were that Mzondile has this nice, chommy way of connecting to people, just really laid back, cool way. Never mind you wearing a suit, and you certainly do that all the time. When did he finally say yes, and what do you think convinced him to say, okay, I'll do it with you, keeping in mind that he hasn't done an interview of any note with anybody, right?
Yes. As part of my engagement with him, we were somehow agreed a couple of weeks ago, but then he had a personal situation, so we had to hold that interview. And remember, all along, I have to keep it to myself, not even share with colleagues, because you don't want something that will then spill it out, and then he changes his mind. So, and then after that, then we continued to have some meetings with him, trying to persuade, and then there was a number of people, Ashraf, who he was meeting, not necessarily politicians, the bishops, the influential people. I mean, some of the people, obviously he told me about. Obviously, I'm not at liberty to reveal some of the names, but it was quite impressive list of people who were concerned about what was happening. So, and also for me, that actually said to me, as part of persuading him, to say, the fact that this kind of caliber of people are willing to say something to you and advise you, just think of the ordinary man and woman who is as interested. He or she does not have this kind of access. And then to him, that was not lost. I mean, he knew that first and foremost, so as he was a member of the EFF, he joined the EFF in order to serve the ordinary masses of this country. So somehow we found one another. But you know what happened, I think about 2 weeks ago. I think it was January, or 2 weeks ago, we were just back from January 8 in Cape Town. And then we then had to catch up in terms of our discussions. And then when we met there, it appeared that the latest round of people he had met had decided that it's better to keep quiet. And I had to effectively start.
and tell me, when that happens and it's like he's going to keep quiet, or like give me another couple of weeks, like, do you go through these emotional highs and lows? I'm trying to look at it in the sporting term. It's like scoring a goal and then VAR rules it offside, right? Like, would that be the type of emotional highs and lows you go through? Because you know the impact of that story.
Yeah, so certainly, and I would perhaps give him the possibility and the option to say, listen, maybe think about this, just think what this will mean and who you are. And I mean, you know, our very first meetings, so you wouldn't see us because we didn't want anything to leak. So it's only, I think, the last meeting where we were a bit more comfortable because everyone knew that he had left Parliament. So it was quite easy then. But we really gave each other, I mean, because sometimes he would come with his own presentation to say, this is how he thinks, and then this is how it will not work. And I will come with mine, and then we'll say, okay, we don't agree, let's go home. So we'll speak in the evening through the phone, and then we'll speak, and then he probably will persuade me out, somehow compromise. So there were a lot of options that were on the table, but somehow, I think it was about a couple of days ago, we were supposed to meet and confirm, and then he kind of like ran away, and then I pursued him. And then, so we finally then agreed, and then we set the date, and then, we hit it.
And I mean, this confirms that, in fact, the content of this interview was agreed upon. So, I mean, I take it that you knew exactly his position and where he's going and where he's not going even before the interview, because you had to negotiate the content, right?
Well, now that the interview is out, as part of engagement, so I needed to understand where he was. So somehow he would tell me some of the things in confidence. Obviously, I would never share those, that rule of being able to keep certain things to yourself. So I had an idea because we had been engaging and trying to persuade each other on this.
Yeah. Okay. What about? So we'll talk later on. We can actually play some clips of the interview after 4:00, right? Of course, it's on YouTube as well. I know that too, right? And then we'll get political reaction from that after 5:00, right? But from your side, I mean, for me, two things stand out. One is his confirmation that effectively he was suspended, right, and therefore told to stay away. And at that EFF conference, everybody was like, we don't know where he is. Ask him, right? And you know that, right? And the second one, finally, is that he's certainly not going to another political party, and that he wants to pursue an academic space or a political commentator, something I think we've seen already in the last few days before your interview. You could just see suddenly he's passing Twitter commentary, which he hasn't done for a long, long time.
Oh, yes. I think you can see he really has a deep love for people, for service, for serving people. So I think the political party gave him that platform. But I think with that difficulty within the party, he found himself in a space where it will be very difficult to associate, at least at the moment, with another political party, but still willing to serve the people. That is why he is saying he's going the civil society route, where he's still going to be able to serve the people without looking at their political lines. So I think it is even easier for him to go that route. So I think in his heart of hearts, he really wants to serve particularly the people of this country.
And there's many ways to serve, not just in Parliament, as we're well aware of. Just finally, from your side, I mean, how did you think, what is your personal opinion about how the interview went?
Well, Ashraf, there's a lot of big news that are happening in the country, in the world, so which makes it difficult for a story perhaps to gain traction. But the fact that in the midst of all these big Elon Musk, Donald Trump, AfriForum stories, this story immediately shot up and somehow led, as it's still leading now, tells you that it may have exceeded my expectation as well.
Okay, and that all-important part about speculation about him understanding that Floyd Shivambu was going to leave to the MK, and he kept it to himself, and that's the reason why he was effectively sidelined. Did he confirm that in fact he was given a hearing, or there was no hearing of any sort, and effectively he was shafted out no matter what?
I think that's why he said it was unconventional, because how it went about. So it didn't stick to what is the code or the discipline of the EFF. So clearly, none of that happened.
Yeah. Just the last thing, I mean, do you see, and this is a personal opinion, do you see him coming back into politics sometime down the line? I mean, he wouldn't be the first South African. The president himself was in politics, out of politics, and has come back as the president of the country, right? Do you think there's any scope for Ndlozi to do just that sometime in the future?
Mbuyiseni Ndlozi is 39 and is very bright, and he is very multidimensional, as he himself confirmed. I wouldn't rule out him coming back to politics, but at least not in the immediate.
Okay.
Maybe in the medium to long term, the possibility is there. He is still very passionate about serving.
Well, passionate about the country is a good thumbs up. Well, Mzondile Mbeja, thanks for connecting with us, and we'll play the interview after parts of it after 4 o'clock. Thank you.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're in the security industry. Every month we save 1,488 Rand with OUTsurance. Just having made the switch from our previous service provider to OUTsurance has allowed us to put another vehicle onto our fleet.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
Bahlabani Bantwa are confident they will triumph this battle to reach the quarterfinals. But Usuthu want to impress the green and white fans with a ticket to the last 8. This is the Nedbank Cup Last 16. Marumo Gallants FC versus Amazulu FC on Saturday, 15 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game, the whispers in the morning, as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady, and you are my man.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, so we'll play some excerpts of that conversation that Mzondile Mbeja had with Mbuyiseni Ndlozi after 4 o'clock. Listen out for that. But for now, let's get to part of the Global Watch. And it really is in many ways, no matter which way you want to put it, South Africa versus the USA. So SA versus USA. Let's get the thoughts of Professor Qolela Mangu, who's he's South African, first of all, but spends most of his time in the USA now, to talk about the ongoing tensions between the countries and the key decision makers within those countries. And I thought, well, that would be a very interesting thing for us all to learn much more about, right? So, Qolela, thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Hey, Ashraf, good to be here.
Yeah, I last saw you shopping, as you and I know, right?
I know.
Good to connect with you once again, right? Well, listen, you know, if shopping for clothing was one thing, effectively, we're shopping for countries, and countries are putting themselves in the shop window. But South Africa's shop window, to some people, doesn't sound very pleasing. It doesn't look very pleasing. What can you tell us about what you firstly observed in the last week or two?
Well, I mean, the U.S. is kind of like collectively the U.S. administration, because I always like to make a distinction between the government and the United States broadly. But the United States government is losing its mind under Donald Trump. And I have argued before that this is not only an overreach, but it is a calculated attempt actually to really make over the American system of government. And this has implications, of course, for everybody around the world, including South Africa. And I like the fact that we have stood up against the bullying by the United States. Having said that, I do want us to always remember think in the long term, Trump is not going to be here forever. Is unlikely to succeed with what he's trying to do in terms of reshaping American government. So even if we stand up now, I still don't think we should antagonize the United States more broadly. After all, it is the most powerful, country in the world.
So perhaps here's the thought, and I mean, clearly where you sit as the professor of sociology and history at the George Washington University, you'd be particularly interested because you understand how countries work and the social impact of it all, right? So what do you feel about the initial pronouncements of Trump as well as Elon Musk regarding South Africa? And you've touched on, the Ramaphosa, we will not be bullied. So what do you feel about, that sort of repartee and whether it has been the right approach from the South African position in response, but certainly also from the American opening gambit by Trump? Because, the broader question would be, what would he want to achieve from all of this?
Look, I've always been like advocating pragmatism when it comes to the United States, but there are certain principles also that we should always uphold. Trump and Musk, right, are really racist in their actions. There's no question about it. Trump announced that he would welcome and make special exceptions for Afrikaners to come to the United States. This is at the very same time that is shutting down the U.S. from refugees from all over the world and from Latin America, and this whole notion is based on made-up stories that have no basis in reality. But these guys operate in a world that has no basis in reality.
But you see, here's the point. You're quite right. I would say he operates in that space. And if I follow Elon Musk's tweets at the moment, it's the same unreal world that they live in, right? But here's the bottom line to it, that they do have clout. They have tremendous clout. And if we talk about wars in traditional ways, these are the wars of words and massive lobbying. And clearly Trump's partner in driving conversation is Elon Musk, and he's clearly using whichever platforms that he can do to do just that. So the point is that it's not so much whether they're right or wrong, is are they doing enough damage to South Africa? And in this case, irreparable damage.
They can do damage to South Africa. Remember, South Africa has been doing damage to itself before Trump by some of the positions we've taken, including, alienating the United States. So economically, we've always been exposed. But what I'm saying is that on certain issues, we do have to say, this is not true, right? This is not right. There's no avoiding the fact that they can do what they want to do, But even with them, that's to a certain limit, and the limit is a practical one. 4 years is not enough for them to do many of the changes that they want to do. Yes, there will be damage in the short term. Trump doesn't have a second term. Now, could Vance win? I think that actually no. I think that there will be a huge backlash in the United States against what they are doing, precisely because this is not what their own voters were asking for. This is not the chaos. There's so much collective trauma now in the United States as people are getting fired from their jobs, with the uncertainty, with all these, pronouncements against Canada, for example, threatening to take over Canada. So they've gone off the rocker. And I am saying that, yes, we should do our best to maintain relationships with the United States in the long term and repair the damage we've already done anyway before Trump, and try and hold on. Remember, the United States is a very dynamic situation. Next year, there's going to be midterm elections in which the Democrats, if they get their act together, could get back into power. Okay. So we must always have a long-term view and not just be annoyed by what Trump is doing now.
That's a good present. Point. Let me leave you with this last question before we get to the news, Professor Mangu. Yeah, so, what then should South Africa, Ramaphosa, the government, the GNU, and the country's response be? Considering, two aspects in particular were highlighted by Donald Trump. One was the issue of South Africa's position regarding Palestine versus Israel, and the other one, of course, South Africa's position regarding Afrikaners specifically. So, in the short term, to safeguard the long-term wins, what should South Africa be doing now? Very, very quick answer, yeah?
There's very little you can do against somebody who's racist and wants to do you harm, and they are powerful, right? What you can do is join in with the rest of the world in voicing the immorality of it, in standing your ground, but you must always have your eye in the long term, right? That the United States will still be there after Trump, and you must cultivate those relations in the long term.
And so will South Africa be here? Let's hope that will be the case. Professor Qolela Mangu, Professor of Sociology and History at the George Washington University. Appreciate your time. Thanks for those invaluable insights. We'll have that up as a podcast as well, ASAP. Let's now get to the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the DA has filed papers in the Western Cape High Court challenging the recent Expropriation Act. The act was signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa last month. The Umkhonto weSizwe Party has opened a case of treason against AfriForum at the Cape Town Central Police Station. The party is calling for the leaders of lobby group AfriForum to be sent to jail for treason. And the National Ports Authority has signed an agreement with the consortium to develop and manage a 7 billion rand gas terminal in the Richards Bay port. FL Update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash reported before Pumalani Toll Plaza. That's causing delays. In KZN, the N3 eastbound has a crash at Cliffdale, and the N3 westbound in Hillcrest, a stationary truck at Key Ridge. In Cape Town, the N1 inbound in Paarl has a crash before the R304 Klipheuwel Road exit. The N1 outbound has a stationary truck before Yipteyaga Avenue, and Victoria Road outbound slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
So to me, we had a cricket final to end on Saturday, but there's an international cricket game that took place today.
There is. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. And unfortunately, New Zealand beat South Africa by 6 wickets and 8 balls to spare in their first ODI tri-series. Earlier, the Proteas were restricted to 305 for 6 in their 50 overs, with debutant Matthew Breetzke becoming the first ever player to score more than 150 runs on ODI debut. A big congratulations to him. But for the Black Caps, Kane Williamson top scored with 133, becoming the 5th New Zealand batter to score 7,000 ODI runs and the 2nd fastest batter to reach the milestone. So the win sees New Zealand advance to the Tri-Series final on Friday, which is definitely a plus for them because Karachi, the venue where that game will be played, will be where they'll play in the Champions Trophy as well. In terms of the Proteas, they need to beat Pakistan on Wednesday in Karachi to qualify for the final against New Zealand at the same venue, and the game is going to start at 11 a.m. South African time. Meanwhile, Ireland needed 18 overs on the final morning to claim a 63-run victory over host Zimbabwe in the one-off test in Bulawayo today. Matthew Humphreys finished with 6 for 57 as he took off the 3 wickets Ireland needed after Zimbabwe resumed on 183 for 7, chasing a target of 292 to win. The teams begin a 3-match one-day international series in Harare on Friday. And then moving on to football, the Premier Soccer League is reportedly exploring possibilities to expel Royal AM. According to SABC Sport, the executive committee are looking to enforce a rule in the NSL handbook which imposes sanctions that lead to suspension and relegation under extreme circumstances. Now, this will mean that the Betway Premiership this season will then have to continue with only 15 instead of 16 clubs. Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Miguel Cardoso says that the title race is far from over. The Brazilians hold a 9-point lead at the top of the league table with 15 matches to play following their 4-1 win over Orlando Pirates at the weekend. And Cardoso believes that the Buccaneers won't throw in the towel just as yet.
We try to influence each other to follow the plan as much as possible, and we can progress, or the team will be teared apart. So this is the effort we need to continue to do, because guys, from now on, gents, our worry is on Tuesday. We have a big responsibility on Tuesday's match, as you might imagine, because after we win Pirates, the responsibility increases. We made a wonderful number of points after the first half of the championship, but there's a second half to play. I told it before, I keep saying, the championship is far away from being finished, very far away. But now, each match we play, we can close it more and more and more. But there's a lot to go. So we just got a small advantage that we should respect. And to respect that advantage is give our best. And the best is already Tuesday. So that's what I spoke with the players already in the locker room. We cheer up, we celebrate, but there's no time to big parties. So please go home and sleep, rest good, because there's another match. There's another match on Tuesday. And the responsibility becomes bigger and bigger, because when you win, you get responsibility. When you win, you get responsibility. And the biggest responsibility comes from the shirt we handle. That obliges us to be on our top performance. The past speaks for itself, and we must be on the height of that past.
Elsewhere, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola has challenged street fighter Jack Grealish to prove him wrong. Grealish has been eased out of Guardiola's first-choice lineup this season, even though City have struggled at times. Now, Grealish impressed in the FA Cup, and Guardiola wants to see more of the performances that he produced, and the player should not be put off by the added competition. There are chances that he will be back on the bench for Tuesday's blockbuster Champions League playoff first leg at home to Real Madrid. In rugby, in what will be welcomed as a very significant boost to the Lions' long-term plans, all-rounder number 8, Frank Horn, has extended his stay at Ellis Park until 2028. The 25-year-old has made 65 appearances for the Lions since 2020, and the blend of power, skill, and leadership he offers to the back row is at the heart of an overachieving forward pack. Meanwhile, in golf, the Open Championship has become the latest major tournament to offer a spot to a leading live golf player in 2025. The highest ranked golfer in the top 5 of the season's live standings at the end of the Dallas event in June will be invited to compete at the Royal Portrush the following month. And then finally in tennis, South Africa's wheelchair tennis star Kgothatso Montjane says that being the new Ubuntu Sports Diplomacy Award recipient attests to how far she has come as the first black woman in the country to compete at the highest level. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation bestowed the accolade on Montjane to acknowledge her high performance and advocacy for human rights through sport.
Yeah, I mean, this Ubuntu Sports Diplomacy Award, it just shows how far I have come. The resilience I've always shown, the courage I've always shown, not giving up. And for me, I just hope this, can motivate others, encourage the others never to give up, and to realize that their dreams are valid. And to always believe in what they're doing.
On that note, that's a wrap from my side for now.
So listen quickly, wrap. Pirates 1, Sundowns 4. What else did you do the weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. That is the
I was at the cricket match.
Of the
I was at the SA20
How
final.
do you find that?
Superb crowds.
Of course.
Well, listen to this one. Do you know what the winners got? How much money did the winners earn?
How much?
35 million rands.
That's the SA20.
16 million rand for the losers for 1 month of work. That's it. It's a month. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Massive crowds, huge atmosphere, full house. People loved it. But there were 4 guys sitting 2 seats behind me, all at Orlando Pirates stops. Why they were not at Loftus, I don't know. Because clearly they were committed Pirates supporters. And they got the news that Pirates lost 4-1 to Mamelodi Sundowns. They were not in a good mood. No.
But a game.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's move on to other things. By the way, you know we have the audience engagement coming up in 10 minutes' time. I'll take your calls. I'll check out your WhatsApps. I'll read your messages. We'll do whatever we can in a few minutes' time, right? But let's celebrate as well. I mean, you know, we certainly love to pick up winners, right? Now, the renowned pediatric pulmonologist, Professor Refilwe Masekela, has received the prestigious American Thoracic Society, the ATS World Lung Award. Already I'm interested because I'm asthmatic, so believe me, lung issues matter now. Now, the award recognizes the outstanding contributions of individuals in improving global lung health. And Masekela is the current president of the South African Thoracic Society, underscoring her influence in shaping respiratory healthcare policies and practices in South Africa and beyond. Okay. Let's talk champions here. Professor Refilwe Masekela with me. Appreciate you joining us here on a day where we celebrate you.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Thank you very much for having me on your show, and I'm really grateful that you have me on.
It's a pleasure. So, I mean, let's talk about what does this mean to you? You know, you get awards, and you would know which ones are more important than others, right? Tell me about this and why it's that important.
Okay. Well, I think this one, the importance of this is actually acknowledgement by your peers that you are deserving to get this kind of award, because of course you receive awards locally, but this is really on a global stage, and it's really heartwarming to realize that people appreciate the kind of work that you do, and it is actually recognized by your peers.
And I mean, you made that point twice, recognized by your peers, so that's critical. How do they go about doing so? What I'm trying to say is, like, are you asked to all contribute and submit names and nominations, and as a process from amongst your peers, then it gets whittled down to 2 or 3 people?
Correct. So, well, a colleague of mine actually nominated me, because you have to be nominated by someone. And she asked me whether I would like to be nominated, and I said yes. And of course, then she submitted all the motivations for me to receive the award based on the work that I've done previously.
So perhaps you can self-motivate now after the event and tell us about the work that you've done so that we know.
Okay. So I think part of this recognition is, as well as being the president of the South African Thoracic Society, and the president of the Pan-African Thoracic Society, which is the African thoracic at the African thoracic level. And I've done a lot of work for the American Thoracic Society. So the Pan-African Thoracic Society, which is called PATH, we actually have had for over 20 years a research training program, which is where we teach people how to conduct research, good quality lung health research. Because on the continent, there's really very few people who are experienced or have the expertise to conduct research. And as part of this PATH-MICO program, I've been working on this for many, many years. So that's also, I think, why there's been recognition from the American Thoracic Society, because I've been involved in training many, many people across the continent to do this.
Yeah, I suppose, therefore, you get judged by your impact. And how do you judge your impact? I mean, in terms of the impact that you and obviously your colleagues make in South Africa and throughout the African continent?
Well, I think for me, the best impact that I can have for myself personally is to mentor people to then take on, to be the next generation of researchers and to be leaders in their fields. Because I think for me, the most important thing is that I not only become successful as an individual, but also pass on what I've learned, my knowledge and skills onto other people. So I really get a lot of joy when I see my trainees succeeding, people that I've trained and taught, publishing, and becoming leaders in the field as well. That to me is what success means.
Okay, what about the recognition, meaning that you get the recognition and inevitably it's for you and your entire home-based community, right? How do you, and one thing is being celebratory and you and I talking on the air, which is a complete result of your recognition, but the other is like understanding the power, the leverage that it gives you. How then do you use this leverage for greater good?
Yes. So I think, of course, if you have successes, it also is a stepping stone, right? And having that stepping stone, and as you correctly mentioning, is that leverage to really then try to access funds to improve, I think, as you mentioned, things like to get more grant funding to support research, and by supporting research we can have the next generation of researchers, because my field of speciality is actually asthma, and I hear that you're an asthma sufferer, to really improve lives. And I think through research, it's the one really critical tool that we have to go to policymakers and show them, this is what works, this is what is cost effective, and really drive change and improve quality of life of people, not only in South Africa, but also, I think for me, it's also across the African continent.
And on the issue of funding, I mean, I just have to mention this, it's very, very topical, maybe not regarding asthma, but the issues of HIV and other things from the USA. Would this be, where does your funding come from? I mean, how much of it is local and versus global?
Yes. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. I think just like I think in economics, we have to diversify our grant resources. I think this is what this is teaching us. Of course, there is also South Africa, we're actually very lucky. We have a number of funding instruments like the SAMRC. There's quite a lot of linked research projects through the National Research Foundation. So there are local grant sources to tap into, but also funding from other bodies, Europe, in the UK, etc. There are still, there's still many avenues that are available and open to us in terms of funding streams. So I don't think that all is doom and gloom.
Well, I'm glad the point you made about diversity. We must reduce our dependence on one country or one source of supply, whatever that means, whether it's money or even just in terms of other resources. So point well taken. Well, for now, good talking to you, because we love to deal with and talk to winners, because your winning inspires others. And I often say this, that, when you win, South Africa wins. So I think it's just something that every one of us needs to make a note of. So Prof. Refilwe Masekela, Head of Pediatrics and Child Health at UKZN, and in this case here now, recipient of the American Thoracic Society's World Lung Award. Sounds pretty good. Thank you for your time.
Very much, Ashraf. Much appreciated.
There we are. And still need to sort out my lungs, just so that you know, with asthma. But believe me, those asthma pumps are like pure gold when you need it. They absolutely are. Right, let's get your thoughts. Let's up the audience engagement.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
In the Arena is a docu-series that takes an in-depth look at the life and career of the legendary tennis player Serena Williams, offering a behind-the-scenes glimpse into her journey, both on and off the court. It explores her rise to tennis dominance, challenges, and personal experiences. Do not miss out on a great story of incredible impact. Catch In the Arena on Saturdays at 3 p.m. on SABC3. Alternatively, at 9 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturdays and Thursdays. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, let's get your comments. Here's a text message. I love that Ashraf when I said South Africa versus USA. We have been winning at everything lately in sports, music, etc. They're getting us at a bad time. We are a special, strong nation that always overcomes. And here's another saying, Ashraf, this matter needs cool heads, as the Trump administration is not going to be threatened by the way people are writing. I mean, how can you have it that it does not matter? China will help South Africa. And in my knowledge and opinion, China does not have a history of giving for free. And the US is the most powerful country in the world, and it can force many countries to sanction Pretoria. And we could find ourselves in the same situation as or position as Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, and Zimbabwe in the next 12 months or so. People must wake up and smell the coffee from TG. The question is, what are the cool heads? What do we do next? We can't just lay down and die, can we? Janus in Cape Town, go for it.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you. Thank you.
Love, thank you very much. Nice talking to you too. Ashraf, Namibian people lost a great leader, a leader who really united people. He didn't go the way as ANC did, creating divisions. The leader who, after receiving independence, he actually joined all the people. It doesn't matter of the color of skin of the people. So the Namibian people had a great, growing and as a country, they improved all the time. And we haven't got any Namibian people coming to us to ask for the jobs because some Nyomo, create.
Although I must say, they got kicked out of that last election. They themselves have got problems. I mean,
Yes, that's right. Yes, but generally speaking, Namibian people are much better than our people here because they didn't go into discrimination and didn't go.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by that. I mean, they didn't go into discrimination. Like, you mean apartheid South Africa discrimination? Which one are you talking about?
Discrimination at the present time, not apartheid.
But the present discrimination is, if you can call it that, is to level the playing fields that were made completely unequal in the period leading up to 1994. I mean, that we all know that, don't we?
Yes. But I know that you're going to try to protect perhaps not.
No, I'm not protecting. I mean, are you saying there was no discrimination before? And
it was discrimination before, of course, but we cannot replace the one discrimination with the other discrimination.
No, but that's why I'm saying it's about redress. What we're having now is redress, unfortunately.
Redress doesn't mean that you're going to remove some people and put other people.
Okay.
It's not a redress.
All right. I've given you Janus, I've given you your time, and clearly you've amplified it. I wonder whether others would agree with you or not. Thanks for that, Janus in Cape Town. In fact, a thumbs up to Sam Njoma and the Namibians, certainly better than South Africans, as he has suggested. Let's go from Njoma to another political name of sorts, Churchill in Umtata. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah,
how are you?
I'm very good indeed. Go for it, Churchill.
I'm good. Look, man, on this issue of Donald Trump, I've been listening to people commenting, the debate is going on. But I think, let's look at the bigger picture. I'm sick and tired of this idea of Africans saying that we're entitled to this aid, relying on handouts by these European powers. Look, this time was always going to come. This is when this hegemony is changing. Remember how the U.S. rose to be where it is. It was after the Second World War. The U.S. never experienced a war directly on its shores. As a result, its institutions were relied upon as the most, stable ones, even the currency. But now that is changing. And it could be coming through Trump or any other person, but it's only the time that has come. Now, what should be happening is Africans, specifically, I want to address Africans.
Yeah.
Because Trump is doing this to everybody. We need to reposition ourselves. Look at the momentum that BRICS is gaining. Let's reposition ourselves with all the countries that want to trade with us and forget about Trump. And be able to tell when to tell Trump to get off. And also, as African people, knowing that this continent is the richest in the world, we must be able to dictate terms. We should be learning from this. Not making this hullabaloo always crying foul. No. We're not entitled to.
So what should we be doing next? I mean, practically.
Practically, let's recondition ourselves as African countries. You know where BRICS is going, is gaining momentum. And also, let's build leaders that are not going to be manipulated, that are going to take control and be able to dictate terms on what should be happening.
All right, let's leave it at that. I think you're right about the momentum, going from 5 countries to 11, I think it is. But whether has the BRICS changed lives? I think that's a fundamental question. One may ask of the G7 and the G20 as well. And South Africa, as you know, is the chair of the G20 this year. Does it actually change lives fundamentally when you're a part of it compared to being on the outside? I think it's an important point, right? Let's change that completely about traffic, and I mean sporting traffic.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. My name is Sikhaugalo. Can you please get someone from the traffic control, the traffic department, or the people who control traffic at the stadium at Loftus? We experience this trend that whenever there is a soccer game, big game of Mamelodi Sundowns, or any big game there is a high congestion of traffic. We are not allowed to park closer to the stadium. And the gates, they only open few gates, and then there is a possibility of stampede to happen there. And this is very worrisome. We are not safe to go to the stadium. Can you please get someone who can explain to us what's happening and how can this be mitigated? Because when there is rugby playing, these things are not happening. Thank you.
Okay, let's find out more about it. I do understand, I believe, and this is just speculation, that many people were parking close to the stadium at Loftus, but in the past they had parked there, and many of the areas sort of closed it down because people were, messing up the turf and the pitches of the schools. I don't know much about it, but it is a problem if the entire ecosystem has got to work.
Afternoon, Ashraf, this is Bloemfontein. I take this sanction from President Elon Musk and Prime Minister Donald Trump as a blessing in the sky. It should be a lesson to African leaders that they should not be allowed to be controlled by America. They should start doing things for themselves, put their people first, and stop corruption. Africa has minerals they can provide for themselves.
President Elon Musk and Prime Minister Donald Trump. That's all I could hear. Okay, points made. Further comment about the MK party.
Good afternoon, Ashraf Gada and your hardworking team of producers behind you. My name is Mpepo Mpireni from Limpopo Mkumani village. Ashraf, my knowledge tells me that no one is allowed to wear any uniform of any law enforcement agencies, such as traffic officials, police, border management authority, soldiers, and etc. In Parliament, MK party parliamentarians are wearing colors of the soldiers. I think we must know where they find it or who sue for them. The uniform is also have a flag of the country. I think we must practice same laws to everyone, instead of rewriting George Orwell's book, which says all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. I thank you so much. My name is Mpepo Mpireni, Limpopo Mkumani village. Da.
Well, I'll tell you what, I see there's been a complaint today again in Parliament because the MK party, at the opening of the at Sona, they came in their army regalia as opposed to EFF red. This is actual army dress, right? And they're doing the same thing today. Is that an issue or not?
Greetings, Ashraf. On this question of Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, I am an EFF member myself. And then I believe that Dr. Ndlozi was treated badly, very badly by the organization. And then it's a shame that things have to end this way after he served the party very diligently and loyally for so long. But I wish him all the best in his future endeavors. Thank you, Ashraf.
I'll tell you what, here's a question as we get to news time. You've watched the interview of Ndlozi. We'll play some of the clips just now. But what's your one word that now you would use to describe Ndlozi post that interview? Now that you know what he said, what's your one word about him? What's your one word about the EFF? Let's think about that. Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the top stories, DA to challenge the Expropriation Act in court, and MK Party accuses AfriForum of treason. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good afternoon. The DA has filed papers in the Western Cape High Court challenging the recent Expropriation Act. The act was signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa last month. The party seeks to have the act, which it argues is unconstitutional, nullified in its entirety. Kenny Mapanga reports.
The DA in papers, however, seeks, among other things, an order which will effectively declare the act inconsistent with the Constitution and invalid. To support this challenge, the DA raises several grounds, including the constitutionality of the process of adopting the act. In addition, the party will also raise that the act is quote-unquote vague and contradictory in several clauses, which according to the DA renders it unconstitutional. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Umkhonto Wesizwe Party has opened a case of treason against AfriForum at the Cape Town Central Police Station. The party is calling for the leaders of lobby group AfriForum to be sent to jail for treason. The party says in a statement that lobbying the U.S. government to impose punitive economic measures on South Africa, AfriForum deliberately attempted to weaken that state through external pressure. MK Party Deputy President John Hlophe.
AfriForum does not seek justice or democracy. It seeks to reverse the gains of our liberation by weaponizing foreign influence against the people of South Africa. The MK Party has taken decisive action by laying formal treason charges against AfriForum. Their actions meet the legal and historic criteria for treason.
EFF leader Julius Malema has accused the government of deliberately misleading the public that SANDF troops have been deployed to the eastern DRC as part of a peacekeeping mission. Malema says SANDF soldiers are actively involved in direct combat with the M23 rebels in the DRC. 14 SANDF soldiers were killed 2 weeks ago following a clash between the Congolese army and M23 rebels. Malema was speaking during an urgent debate underway in Parliament on the deaths of the soldiers.
The truth is that our soldiers are not there to maintain peace. They are engaged in a direct combat, fighting against the highly armed and strategically superior M23 rebels who are supported by the reckless president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. Our government has deliberately misled the people. The reality is that our soldiers are fighting an enemy that has better weaponry, better resources, and better intelligence. While the rebels possess advanced military equipment, our soldiers are sent to battle without drones, without fighter jets, and without critical military assets.
The National Ports Authority has signed an agreement with the consortium to develop and manage a 7 billion rand gas terminal in the Richards Bay Port. For Park Terminal, Durban and Transnet Pipelines have joined forces to form Zululand Energy Terminal, which will bear 70% of the cost to build the liquefied natural gas terminal. The first phase of the LNG terminal comprises a floating storage unit by 2028. Speaking at the signing ceremony, KwaZulu-Natal Premier Taminduli says the development of the terminal ties in with Eskom's plans to build a gas-to-power plant at Richards Bay.
The projects are expected to generate approximately 1,000 jobs, I'm told, with additional opportunities created during the construction of a berth 207 and pipelines. Today's signing again confirms that indeed KwaZulu-Natal will become the leading ecosystem hub that will attract much needed investment and create jobs in our province.
Marriages slumped in China last year despite strenuous efforts by the authorities to encourage couples to wed and have children. They fell by a fifth, a new record, according to the Civil Affairs Ministry. The higher cost of childcare and education are among the causes. The BBC's Celia Hatton reports.
The Chinese authorities have been promoting what they say is a new era for marriage, one in which couples share housework and childcare duties. They've also been handing out cash incentives, but it's not working. The marriage rate still fell by a fifth. Divorces also saw a slight increase. Officials are worried that without marriage, China's birth rate will also continue to shrink, a major concern as the number of old people in China is rising.
Recapping the top story, the DA has filed papers in the Western Cape High Court challenging the recent Expropriation Act. The act was signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa last month. I am Mondela Mbana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, unions make SA Rugby equity pitch and Brieski breaks 47-year ODI record. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. Sandton Drive westbound has delays towards Marie Avenue, and the N1 northbound in Centurion slow moving towards Brakfontein Interchange. In KZN, the N3 westbound, a stationary truck before Kato Ridge exit. The N3 westbound in Hillcrest has a stationary truck at Key Ridge, and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. Bakencrest Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway, and Corporation Street is closed at City Hall for parliamentary events until the 19th of February. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
V up your 2025 with Vodacom Business and Galaxy AI. Save up to 20,000 Rand with trade-in when you pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra 256 gig on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for just 1,539 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal with the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM for 69 Rand extra per month. Available in-store and online. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Oh, oui, oui, Jessica, I Citroën you. You are my chérie de go. I am your wild track ranger.
What are you doing?
I'm just looking on WeBuyCars' website for what I'm getting you for Valentine's Day.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, they have a nationwide spin and win promotion where you can score a guaranteed prize of up to 10,000 Rand when you purchase a car.
Ooh, now that's romantic.
There's also hundreds of discounted auction vehicles available.
So what are we waiting for?
See you this Valentine's Day weekend at WeBuyCars, the easiest way to buy and sell a car by far.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care. At SAFM, we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man.
Well, it's February, we know that. So this month, don't just treat yourself to some chocolates. You could also treat yourself to some great car insurance savings. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premiums, ask them for 500 Rands in cash and make that 1,500 bucks if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. So get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. SMS out to 30754. That's it, out 30754. With Outsurance, well, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, still to come, we'll play some of the soundbites, some key quotes from Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi regarding that, let's call it an exit interview from the EFF, right? But this is something here that I want to raise, right? The collective must come together. You know that phrase, we are stronger together. Well, events of the, can I say the Elon Trump leadership of the last week or two has proved once again that we are absolutely under attack, not as a group or a tribe, but as an entire nation. It's not an attack by an army, but it is an attack of information, disinformation, fueled by, lobby groups that grab attention internally and externally, and it gets amplified around the world. And then, of course, that is given oxygen by very intentional social media platforms led by Elon Musk himself. And suddenly South Africa is the worst country in the world, isn't it? What is it? What's that story? Bad people doing, terrible things and terrible things happening in South Africa. Can you believe it? They're talking about our country. This is the president who said a few days later, we will take over Gaza in Palestine. And yet, when he talks, many people view his comments with the type of credibility you would associate with a humanitarian. I mean, there's something so contradictory about all of that, isn't it? So back to us, what do we do? Well, if South Africa is your home, then you have to react in some way or the other. We made in South Africa. For many of us, we've made it in South Africa as well. And our battle is not just Elon Musk or Donald Trump or Elon Trump. It's within. It's ourselves. The fact is, for far too long, and we must be clear about this, we have allowed South Africa to also slide. I talk about this dream of a champion nation, but for far too long, we've moved from champion nation possibilities to a sense of mediocrity. And when we do that, we become completely vulnerable, where people can talk about our country like we're some sort of a joke. We can't allow that to happen any longer, can we? But for that to change, that narrative to change, one is we need to amplify what's good about our country around the world. And then internally, we need to get things right. We know, and I've said this before, we can list about 10 things, maybe even more, fundamental things in our country that are just so wrong. We need to fix that. We need to move from being a dependent country to an independent country that delivers to the people. So can we collectively build the capacity to deliver the best service to the people of our country? Can we genuinely do what's best for all the people of South Africa? And I talk irrespective of race or ethnicity or language group, for all the people that live in it, right? Can we best serve South Africa? Now, over the weekend, I was so impressed by the amounts of South Africans who took to the same, Elon Musk platform to tweet out the fact that they are all South African. They love their country. We must absolutely do that. That's just the starting point. Because here's the thought to you and I. Can we say with certainty that no matter what others say, that not only will we do what's best for our country, that we can say, well, you know what? Of all the things in the world that I want to champion, the greatest cause I can champion living here is, can I champion South Africa? Because that impact will have an impact globally if we truly live out that cause of championing our very own nation. Well, that's my point. What's yours?
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, so we've had that fascinating interview with, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi had with the SABC's political editor Imzwandile Mbeje. Now, firstly, the interview that I had with Imzwandile, we put it up as a podcast, listen to it. Very nice backstory about that entire conversation that he had, right? And we'll have response to that actual interview itself coming up after 5 o'clock with Susan Boyson, right? But what we thought is, let's do this first things first. Let's play some important sound bites coming out of that interview that we think that that are really impactful, that you need to be listening to. So let's get to that. In fact, what I'll do is I'll do it right after this.
The Mangaung Metro Municipality is hosting an investment summit to bring investment to Bloemfontein. The summit will take place on 19 and 20 February at the City Hall and aims to bring together different economic role players from across the country and abroad. To be part of the summit or for more info, call 073 184 8972 or send an email to summit@mangaung.co.za. Mangaung, at the heart of it all.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45, proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so let's get to those that conversation with Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi talking to, well, the SABC News political editor, right? So first things first, he spoke about this all-important circumstances that led him to not attending the EFF's National People's Assembly, and I was there in December 2024.
Well, I couldn't attend the conference of the EFF, the NPA, because over a dispute over my suspension. I was suspended about 6 weeks before the conference, and the suspension was unconventional in that it didn't rely on the code of conduct of the EFF summoned by its constitution, but largely the suspension rested on 2 counts. Yeah. On the one hand, the leadership said that it's in possession of an intelligence report in which they claim that I'm part of the infiltration strategy by the MKP. I'm working with the MKP. I'm planning to go to join them. I'm waiting for some opportune moment. The second one largely rested on the fact that I knew about the then Deputy President Floyd Shivambu's departure, and I didn't tell the leadership. Of course, I was told to stay at home, cease my participation in Parliament and the rest of the activities of the EFF. And so it was very important for me because they said that the investigation is still ongoing, and when the investigation is finished, I then would be given an opportunity to respond to these allegations. I think we can all agree these are dangerous and very serious allegations. At a later stage, the leadership argued that the report would only be ready after conference, and the matter has been referred to the leadership after the conference. It seemed fair for me to wait to clear my name in relation to these allegations so that I don't function with a cloud, a dark cloud on my head or a gun on my face. As I said, we can all agree these are very serious allegations that one had betrayed the revolution, had been disloyal, and that indeed you are a double agent of some sort. Of course, I can state categorically now that I never planned to join the MKP. I still don't. I never worked with anybody in the MKP in relation to some conspiracy about my departure. And I think that whatever information they say they have was based largely on lies. Secondly, I did know about the departure of Floyd Shivambu. He did come to tell me of his consideration, and indeed I did tell him that, look, you would have to take the leadership into confidence, and he did. The idea that I should have ran behind his back and informed other people or the leadership suggests that I'm an informant, a gossiper, or a wedge driver. I am none of those. It was Floyd's decision. He had to communicate it. It was not my decision. It was his. He had to communicate it, and he did.
Then a key word that's emerged from that conversation is entanglement.
Well, it's neither here nor there. I think that, you see, it's now a matter of public record that our leadership has been engaged with President Zuma as well as the MKP for a very long time, a long time ago. My count is that over the last 3 to 4 years. It is that tactic of entanglement which, in my view, was responsible for the heavy losses, as it were, that we saw the EFF sustain in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, being overtaken in Mpumalanga, as well as in the National Assembly. Tactics of entanglement. We had already been entangled by the leadership itself, and this entanglement, in my view, which I think it was a miscalculated tactic of entanglement, should be understood for what is responsible for what rocked us in relation to the departure of the then Deputy President and ultimately Butali. But it's a matter of public record whether they tried to seek his endorsement, cooperation during the elections. You would recall the leadership had on many occasions said, we are one with the MKP and all of that. I think it's really that. I would hope that it had nothing to do with this or that position in the organization. But seemingly the distrust that was invited, in my view, by the departure of the Deputy President, which I think it shouldn't have, because if you accept that you had already entangled us with the MKP, such an occurrence shouldn't have to rock us in the way that it did.
Well, key word or key person with regard to entanglement has got to be Julius Malema.
Yes, he is part of the leadership collective. And I mean, Mzai, these are political differences, which we must keep political. I have rejected every invitation to make any of these matters personal. They are political. And political disagreements are part of the political evolution of any project. The revolution itself, specifically the revolution that finds its oppressive tentacles in imperialist global forces. So certainly the idea of extracting him as an individual doesn't assist. There was a collective project of entangling us tactically to firstly President Zuma and the MKP, and once you come to appreciate what that means, and there are so many historical examples to that effect, which could have assisted you that once you entangle us, you say we're one with the MKP, there are things that are no longer possible. You couldn't say that they are enemies. You couldn't say that Floyd Shivambu is an enemy or is betrayed us, because he did not cross the picket line. He didn't join Botha or de Klerk. It's like if somebody left the ANC and joined the PAC. You couldn't cultivate a politics of anonymity. These are the political differences that I think could have been constructively dealt with a full acknowledgement of the consequences of miscalculated tactics of entanglement.
And now we have to talk about Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi and the EFF in the past tense.
A member of the EFF.
I have left the EFF. I have left party politics. EFF is a political party. I have handed over my resignation as a member, and it is because where I want to go and contribute, I can't hold a single party membership. But overall, I think that I've made my contribution. And I think that there are brilliant young men and women, old men and women as well, in the space that will continue in that category, as it were, of party politics. I think I'll contribute elsewhere in the remaining decades of my life.
Right, so next up, we will chat to Advocate Sipho Mantula about the goings-on in the East Africa, in fact.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, if you think there's been a lull in discussions around what's going on in the Congo or the eastern parts of the Congo, think again. Leaders from the eastern and southern Africa met up on Saturday calling for an immediate ceasefire in the eastern Congo region, where rebels, and some are saying why even use the word rebels, so we said about inverted commas, are threatening to overthrow the Congolese government, but also urging the Congo president to directly negotiate with them. So what does all that mean, right? Somebody who certainly knows Africa more than most is Advocate Sipho Mantula, the researcher at the Thabo Mbeki African School on Public and International Affairs. Sipho, good chatting to you as always. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse and not just in the morning.
Afternoon, Brother Ashraf, even to the listeners of the National Pulse.
Thank you. Right. So what for you are the key points that emerged from this weekend's meeting of states? And states people, of course.
I think, Brother Ashraf, what is important is the meeting of minds between the two leaders who are being linked or implicated to this crisis of Congo, which we know it has been there for years, since 1960, 1996. but to have President Kagame and President Tshisekedi engaging, and even other leaders of the SADC and East Africa community witnessing that engagement. One day or two, they might say it's not enough, but it was important for them to reach some of the mileage of saying that there is a need to end this conflict and there is a need to search for engagement between those armed forces from the Eastern DRC to engage with President Tshisekedi. And I think the other aspect is the question of humanitarian crisis, to say how do we assist people who are still trapped in the Eastern DRC. I think that's how one looks at that meeting. And for our president even to be there after the SONA, Ashraf, that shows leadership, that beyond losing our soldiers there, but for the president to be part of that meeting of minds of East Africa community led by President Ruto as well as President Mnangagwa, that was very critical.
Well, here's the thought. How much of it was just saying that we need to meet, we need to have a ceasefire, we need to come to some agreement versus an actual agreement? What I'm saying is, have they emerged from that first meeting with something that is substantial, that says, actually, we have a deal?
Absolutely. Ashraf, there was a deal, if you can say, despite that Tshisekedi was virtual, but at least to agree on the forces, on the soldiers, the defense ministers to engage and come up with some modalities of integration of the armed forces there. And secondly, Ashraf, you'll recall in 2001, we had the inter-Congolese dialogue. Do you remember how many days it was? Almost 52 days. So you can see that when you are engaging on a conflict that is also resource-based, you can't finish it within 3 days or 4 days, but also you need guarantors. You need people who can guarantor that, and that is East Africa community as well as SADC. Not UN, not even USA or even Belgium, but this is guarantor by the SADC and the East Africa community.
What did Paul Kagame say?
Paul Kagame, as you know, he still raised the issue that Rwanda is not involved and that there is a need for Tshisekedi to can engage with the M23 rebels. But he still insists on that the SADC mission there was not a peacekeeping mission. And I think that's a misinterpretation of mandates, Ashraf. And I think that Paul Kagame is still angry with how the East Africa community was pulled out of Congo and SADC was being brought in. So I think for him, it is the issue of still trying to stress the issue that the Congolese issue, it must be resolved by the Congolese government in Kinshasa.
So to go back to the original point, if the call has been made for a ceasefire on the one hand, but also negotiations with what is called the rebels, they wouldn't be part of this agreement. So then what happens next?
No, correctly. And actually, this was said by President Museveni, saying even if we are meeting as East Africa Community and SADC, there was a need to have M23. But remember, the leader of M23 was busy doing media interviews. There was a warrant of arrest that was issued against him a day before the meeting. So if one looks at these issues, that you need to bring Colonel Nanga to the party, to the center, and at the same time, ceasefire is very important. Despite that, we still hear them moving towards the south of Kivu, planning to go to the capital city, which will cause more tensions. If you will understand that Uganda, Burundi, they are already on their border post.
Yeah. Is there any final point you wish to raise?
No. For me, Ashraf, I will say to you, this coming week on Thursday, the Thabo Mbeki school will be looking at the assessment of this conflict, implications of it. And as you know, Ashraf will always ask this question: why are there fighting forces between M23 and the government of Congo? We'll want to know what then is the role of Rwanda, the role of other neighboring countries. And finally, Ashraf will always ask that question: what then is the role of the UN and the regional economic bodies? So it will be key for us to engage with it. Diplomats will be there, former military generals, intelligence guys will be there, Ashraf, on Thursday at UNISA, where the Thabo Mbeki school will be looking critically on this question of the Eastern DRC, searching for the lasting peace.
And need I say this, you mentioned the Thabo Mbeki school. Would he play a significant role himself, Thabo Mbeki himself?
Not really, Ashraf. If I have to go off on air, I'll say to you, he's just behind the scenes now on this matter. As you know, he's still paying tribute to Sam Nujoma now. I think on the question of DRC, he has been trying not to get involved as much because you will recall he was involved in the DRC mediation in 2001. And probably he's behind President Ramaphosa in terms of giving advice of where to now as we are dealing with the Eastern DRC.
Okay, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated, Advocate Sipho Mantula. All I can say is I'll listen to you at 7:45 tomorrow morning. That's like that's my appointment that I have, right? As far as Thabo Mbeki is concerned, it's an interesting one. I mean, he's someone who's pushed for dialogue around the African continent. Is there a place for him in trying to mediate in some way or the other in the DRC? Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, Minister of Defence and Military Veterans Angie Motshekga says the remains of the 14 SANDF soldiers who died in the eastern DRC 2 weeks ago are likely to be repatriated back in the country, the latest by Thursday this week. The DA has filed papers in the Western Cape High Court challenging the recent Expropriation Act. The act was signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa last month, and the Black Business Council has raised concern about the impact of the US's executive orders on the African Growth and Opportunity Act. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Rose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng on the N2 eastbound, an ad-load movement reported between Riversdale and Albertinia. The N3 southbound in Lindbro Park has a crash near Marlborough Drive. The M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown interchange towards Boysons. Bayes Nordia Drive westbound in Montgomery Park is slow moving at John Adamson Drive, and Kleurkop Road eastbound has delays towards Zierfontein Avenue. In KZN, on the N3 outbound, queuing traffic towards Spaghetti Junction. The N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle after Spaghetti Junction. The N3 westbound has a stationary truck before Carter Ridge exit, and the N3 westbound a stationary truck at Key Ridge. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The M5 southbound is queuing towards the N2 highway, and Bakengracht Street outbound slow moving towards the elevated freeway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
To me, we're talking rugby and business of rugby, right?
Yes, we are. The Vodacom Bulls, Sharks and Stormers have reportedly expressed interest in acquiring a 20% stake in SA Rugby's commercial rights. According to News 24, the three local unions formed a consortium called Rainbow Consortium. They submitted a letter to SA Rugby proposing an alternative equity transaction. Now, the unions reportedly want a deal that matches the ASG proposal, and they have assured SA Rugby that no transaction fees or commissions would be paid to third parties. It's a developing story, and we'll definitely keep you up to date with regards to this one. Meanwhile, a squad of 30 players will depart to Georgia on Sunday as the junior Springboks kick off their 2025 season with a short tour which features 3 matches and forms an integral part of the national under-20 group's preparations for the forthcoming season. The junior Boks are set to play in the 2025 editions of the SANZA organized Under-20 Rugby Championship, and that's in April and May, and the World Rugby Under-20 Championship in June and July. The tour squad was selected from the ranks of the SA Rugby Under-20 Academy Training Group, which is currently working in Stellenbosch. In cricket, South African opening batter Matthew Breeski broke a 47-year-old record when he made the highest score on a one-day international debut with 150 as the Proteas lost by 6 wickets to New Zealand in a Tri-Nations clash today. Breeski struck 11 fours and 5 sixes in his 148 ball innings as South Africa's batting first amassed 304 for 6 in their 50 overs, and he says that it would have been even more special with a win today.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. But like I said, now I think when you come up against 2 world-class players like that on a really good wicket, you know, there's not much you can do. I think the bowlers really tried their heart out. But yeah, in terms of me in the field, it was bleak. I definitely wanted to get the win because it would have been a little bit more special. But I guess that's how cricket goes. So we move on, and hopefully we can get a win the next game.
Moving on to tennis, Novak Djokovic says that his leg injury, which shattered his Australian Open dream, is almost 100% healed, and he is ready to aim for his 100th ATP title in Doha this month. Djokovic is now expecting to be back for the Qatar Open, which starts on the 17th of February, where he'll be hoping to join Jimmy Connors and Roger Federer by reaching 100 ATP titles. In football, Arsenal are hoping that Bukayo Saka will return from injury in March to boost their bid to chase Liverpool in the Premier League title race and to go deep in the Champions League. Saka is with the Arsenal squad in Dubai and is continuing his rehab there in what is a positive development. Remember, he's been out since undergoing surgery to repair his torn hamstring in December, and he is said to be targeting an Arsenal comeback for the Champions League last 16 first leg on either the 4th or the 5th of March, with a trip to Manchester United on the 9th of March. Finally, in athletics, reigning under 400-meter champion Udim Okan used the Curo Hazeldean Podium High School Championships as a warm-up for the upcoming Central Gauteng Athletics Provincial Championships. The 19-year-old stormed to victory in 31.83 seconds, finishing ahead of former national 200-meter champion Sinesipho Dambile and Mtim Tukulu. And Okan says that he needed this race to assess his form ahead of the regional competition at Germanstadt Stadium.
I can definitely say speed, where I can accelerate, where I de-accelerate, just testing out the body and seeing where I can push myself in the 400. Yeah. Of course, it was like you said, it's the test round. I felt as if, I got also new spikes, so it was just like testing the new spikes out and, opening the season up strong. I didn't want to come out here and just run a slow time. I wanted to see how hard I worked in December and see if, that's paying off. And then,
That's it from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
So just a quick one. Just a response about these clubs wanting to get involved in SA Rugby, not the other way around.
It's very interesting. Obviously, we know that Patrice Motsepe has a stake in one of the franchises, Johan Rupert, Marco Masotti, and Johan Leroux. Them coming together for this 20% stake. It'll be interesting to see how it develops, because obviously right now it's just interest. They have said that they want to have that very same deal as the ASG, nothing less, obviously.
Okay. And if all else fails, they can go the IPL route and learn from what's going on in India and the SA20 League. Goodness gracious me, man.
A lot of money there.
Yeah. There we are. So, lots on the table, let's put it that way. Right, more sport in an hour.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul?
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
It's time to shine for young athletes across South Africa. From thrilling football and rugby matches to intense netball games. Experience the passion and prowess of Mzansi's finest young sports stars. Super Sports Schools and SABC Plus bring you the specially curated channel dedicated entirely to school and youth sports. Join us as we celebrate their achievements and bring the excitement right to your screens. This is your chance to support the future of South African sports. The Super Sports Schools channel on SABC Plus, where every game is a home game. Don't miss a moment. Download the SABC Plus app today. Available on iOS, Google, and Smart TV. Or visit sabc-plus.com to start streaming. Super Sports Schools on SABC Plus. All the sport you care about most. Now streaming wherever you are.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And let's get to those numbers with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, thanks for connecting. Right, you've got news locally and globally, but important news back home regarding Telkom.
Yeah, good news from Telkom. Share price up 97.5% in afternoon to you, Ashraf, and the listeners. And their data-led strategy continued to yield strong data service revenue across the group and that's been driven by the ongoing demand for their compelling data propositions. And they are now in the final stages of the closing the disposal of SwiftNet, and mobile subscribers are up 21% to 24 million, with data users comprising 62% of the total mobile subscribers, prioritizing fiber connections, with homes passed with fiber up 13% to 1.3 million, group revenue up 0.9%, overall financial performance as EBITDA up 28%, and investors digested a cooler than anticipated US jobs report and the sharp uptick in inflation expectations just as Trump announced fresh tariff measures and escalating trade sanctions. Tensions didn't dent investor sentiment. Trump is planning to announce a blanket 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports today, and as a country, our steel industry is particularly vulnerable to this new policy. Remember, we exported almost $518 million worth of iron steel to the US last year, so we could face severe economic consequences if the tariffs are applied. And actually, metal itself was down 3%, and we've seen that China, when it comes to the consumer inflation, rose to a 5-month high in January, and that's on the back of higher spending in the lead up to the Lunar New Year, and the rand, instead of getting support from firmer commodity prices, is now trading flat as the dollar strengthened on the threat of more tariffs and higher yields. Oil prices rebounded despite the lingering fears of a potential trade war, up 1% at $75 a barrel. Yellow metal at all-time highs, lifted by increased safe haven demand as Trump tariffs are now aimed at commodity imports. We see gold is up 1.5% at 2,901, platinum up also 8%, and the markets shift off tariff fears with GSE up 0.4%. The rand, as we said, is flat against the US dollar at 18.40, 22.77 against the pound, and 18.97 against the euro.
Okay, got that. Makwe, thanks for that. You have a great evening, and we'll connect again tomorrow.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's move on to another issue. You know, a week or so ago, we spoke about the mining in Indaba and the role of many different stakeholders in terms of the roles that they play. So let's do another sequel on that one there with Thando Ncuma Moyo, who's the General Manager for Strategic Partnerships, Business Development and Stakeholder Relations at the Technology Innovation Agency. Thando, good to connect with you. You're on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to your listeners as well.
Thank you. So let's recap. I mean, in terms of your involvement, as in your company's involvement with the mining in Indaba, what was it? I mean, you had a premise that you wanted to get involved in the first place. What was that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest the premise for us, or the strategic impetus, was really around connecting innovation with industry and responding to industry challenges. I mean, our main core is the Technology Innovation Agency is being a funder and playing that connector role from innovations that would solve specific challenges in the mining sector. Those challenges would include the energy trilemma, would include operations in the mining industry, which include the water challenges in the mining industry. So we invest in innovations and technologies that could be acquired by these mining houses for them to be efficient.
Okay. So carry on. Continue.
So yes, indeed. So our role was to go and present these technological solutions. So to respond to the questions which were being posed by industry, by us putting out the tangible technologies that could be used, but also partnering with industry to respond to those challenges, where we say, let's go together and look at innovations that could solve the challenges in the mining industry.
Well, I suppose, therefore, you saw problems and you said, let's attempt to solve the problems. What were you able to either do at the Indaba or promise to do, post-Indaba?
So we're already doing a lot in responding to the challenges of the energy trilemma in the mining industry. The operations themselves, we funded technologies for acid mine drainage. We funded technologies for predicting problems or seeing problems in the operations of the mines, which then help to solve or to save costs of the mines from shutting down unnecessarily for maintenance or long maintenance hours. But what is important also to note, Ashraf, is that one of the things we're already doing, which we were presenting as a solution to the mining indaba, and you'd have heard when the president also spoke about it, is the Innovation Fund, one of the key instruments to really fund innovations in the space. That's the first one. The second, so it was really us saying there is funding for innovation. Even if as a mining company you don't have an R&D function or department, but we are coming in as an innovation partner to bring in those type of solutions together with startups and investors and science councils. But secondly, for us in that Mining Indaba to strengthen industry partnerships, we engaged with industry, we engaged with government departments, and one of the things we're looking at doing is looking at a mining industry innovation program where we have concerted efforts to put in money jointly to fund these innovations.
Well, I tell you what, innovation is so important. I mean, we all know that we must be on side as a country regarding innovation. When you talk about funding, therefore, I mean, who would be the beneficiaries? Meaning, who would be the end user? Which type of companies would benefit from this? Are these young startups or established businesses like all within the mining industry?
So this is, it's a mixture of different types of beneficiaries. These could be startups themselves who are developing technologies which could be business type of transactions or sales afterwards, commercialized to other industries. This could also be big industry as well, like your major mining industry. But this could also be universities that have mining capabilities or mineral beneficiation capabilities and are able to develop technologies, but they don't necessarily commercialize themselves. Where we fund them in order to spin out companies that could be new industries or new companies. So we fund a variety of entities that at the end of the day would chain out these innovations in the different value chain or that across the entire value chain of mining, that is mineral beneficiation, exploration, mine closures, and all the entities that would be involved in the entire value chain.
Okay, that sounds very good news. Now, we also know that the State of the Nation address, one of the key factors has been the issues around the green economy, so, renewable energy, green manufacturing, and all that sort of thing. How therefore, does TIA position itself to be able to support that?
Yeah, so because TIA has a transversal mandate, it's not an innovation agency just of a few, but of the country, and it's an innovation partner of the country in various sectors. TIA has structured itself to have different sectors, and one of the sectors we have is the energy sector that we focus on. So we've got an energy sector focus, we've got advanced manufacturing, we've got mining, we've got natural resources, we've got indigenous knowledge, we've got health. So we've got a focus on all the economies, sectors of the economy. And in one way or the other, we've clubbed these ones of mining and energy and advanced manufacturing under what we call industrial sectors because they are intertwined. So in the green energy space, we are looking at investments in green hydrogen. You would remember that green hydrogen is a brain or an output, or it helps with mineral beneficiation because you are using platinum group metals, right, which are endowment in South Africa. So we then, in our energy unit, do the mineral or invest in an aspect of mineral beneficiation. When we are looking at green hydrogen investments, we are looking at renewable energy, like looking at solar panels that are more efficient for our weather in South Africa. We're looking at different types of wind turbine blades. So we're looking at investing at those technologies that would reduce our importation of this equipment to produce renewable energy. But also on the coal side, even though it's ascribed as fossil fuel or as non-clean fuel, but we're saying there's also technologies we're looking at for cleaner coal technologies, so that even the asset that we have as a country is not put to waste, but we're saying how do we even improve it to be cleaner. We're talking about natural gas as well. We're talking about nuclear as well. So those are the focus areas that we look at this year to support the mining industry in as far as transition.
Well, it certainly seems like the TIA has its ducks in a row, and that is well done to their collective team. Having said that, how do you maintain the momentum of what you've already achieved going into the full year of 2025, keeping in mind, I think, a point that I know you feel strongly about, to ensure that South Africa remains globally competitive? And this is particularly important regarding another side issue, the goings on between the USA and South Africa.
Oh, yes. So how we position ourselves, even in our organization, we've got an internationalization unit, and one of the units that I'm responsible for. And we have done this in time memorial. from the past. So it's not things we're thinking of today, but it's things we've built over a period of time, where we partner with other countries, and it's something we're going to continue to do. These are African countries, these are European countries, this is different countries, not only just the USA, but so we've explored international partnerships to continue our work outside the borders of South Africa, because when we talk about economic growth, we're also talking about dealing with the trade deficit, so where we're able to innovate to export. But also what we've looked at is saying in that journey, we want to also be inclusive, making sure that our instruments are able to diversify and being able to include women, black, have a transformative element to it. So one of the things we're going to be really focusing on this is around transformation and international partnerships, but most particularly industry partnerships. And we are also going to try and consolidate, or being a curator, to consolidate innovation funding pockets from different industries and government to say, let's syndicate the approach towards innovation so that we do not have duplication of funding, or we rather reduce the cost of funding so that we can do more with less. And so that in the future, where there's really countries that pull out of the bilaterals we have with them, we are still able to continue with innovation.
Absolutely.
Because we just have a model of syndicating these things within
and
the
that diversity is so important. Let's leave it at that.
Definitely.
You need to get back to work, so let me not delay you 1 second any longer. And that's Thando Nquma Moyo, the General Manager, Strategic Partnerships, Business Development and Stakeholder Relations. Appreciate your time here regarding the Technology Innovation Agency, the TIA, and the great work that they do.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashraf. Bye.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
In the Arena is a docu-series that takes an in-depth look at the life and career of the legendary tennis player Serena Williams, offering a behind-the-scenes glimpse into her journey, both on and off the court. It explores her rise to tennis dominance, challenges, and personal experiences. Do not miss out on a great story of incredible impact. Catch In the Arena on Saturdays at 3 p.m. on SABC3. Alternatively, at 9 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturdays and Thursdays. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game, the whispers in the morning, as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'cause I'm your lady, and you are my man.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
All right, let's get your thoughts. We need to up the audience engagement. I'll get to some of the text messages. I'll check out some of the tweets as well if I can. And certainly the voice notes, a combination of all of that. But I'll start with Impo in Randfontein. Hi, Impo.
Ashraf, how are you, my brother?
Okay, you know, when you say Randfontein, there's only one person I think about. That's Ace Insolengwe, if you get my point, okay?
You must have forgotten Terama Tebula Ace.
Well, maybe, but maybe I'm biased with Ace Insolengwe. I just think he's probably the finest footballer this country has ever produced. Was certainly the one that I saw when I was a lighty, and he appreciated that. Okay, let's go. What's your point?
No, my point was about the case opened by DA today.
Yeah.
There are two possibilities on that case. One is that they have realized that it could be possible AfriForum might take away a good number of big white votes to them. So that's a worry that this could cause a problem. But the other thing that it should help me to understand isn't that this thing does not provoke the re-establishment of whiteness in the country. that we are the same one. We should come together. But it's a global, it looks like it's a global thing that the white establishment is coming back very aggressively. And if care is not taken, the possibility that I said might not come back in this country, that apartheid can come back, it's just a possibility given what we hear and talk. Because if people should defend sharing of the land and working together as a nation, it does appear that apartheid can come back if they will.
Well, I want to move on. I think the point is that, look, the DA's position, it's not like they just thumbsuck it today. That's exactly what they've been saying. Then, as part of the GNU, there's been some sort of compromises. So you've got the Steenhuisen saying one thing as part of the GNU, Helen Zille saying another thing, who's now actually officially taken the issue to court, which is another story. And your point is also valid. A lot of people thought that if the ANC will be part of the GNU, the ANC may lose votes. But here's another thought, that if the DA is now part of the GNU and what's perceived in terms of their support of the broader ANC policies, they could lose votes to a more right-wing element as per the Freedom Front Plus. It's a fascinating world we live in, I can tell you that now. Impo, thanks for that call. Certainly got us thinking about that, right? Right, let's get to further comments. And yeah, lots of thoughts about Ndlozi. By the way, we'll get further comment on that Ndlozi interview just now, right?
Ashraf, Flores again here from the Western Cape, man. Ndlozi, what is his speciality? What is he practicing? I always hear about Dr. Ndlozi. So yeah, and that he has a heart for serving the people. I think he is a doctor. If he is a medical doctor, well, then he is in the right place to serve people. Yeah, give help to those people who cannot afford to go to private doctors. That way he can also help people. So yeah, I would like to know what type of a doctor he is. Thank you.
Okay, certainly not a medical doctor. Let's start with that one. We'll get the actual title in terms of where he is in just a moment. Okay, maybe we'll get Keys to just check it up and be clear so we can guide you. But medical doctor, no, right? But maybe there's some relief that's needed for the country, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and your guest. Ashraf, Donald Trump refused to welcome the people of Mexico. But now he said the white people from South Africa, they must go to stay in United States. They are welcome. You can see Donald Trump is racist. I want to be honest with you. Near United States, Mexico people, they are staying there. Now he's busy chasing them, send the police, law enforcement, he call them illegal immigrants. He kicked them out. After that, they said the white farmers in South Africa, they must go to America, they are welcome. This guy is so racist. But it's fine. It's only for 4 years. 4 years is coming. 5 years. He will leave that office.
Oh my goodness, it's interesting.
Everything is going to be normal.
Everything will be normal after 4 years. Well, I don't know if I'm not saying it's not racist, but I don't even think it's about racism. It's about straight-on opportunism. What has Donald Trump ever done that's not opportunistic? That just suits his narrow agenda. I mean, seriously so. That's really the point, isn't it? And the point I've made, Elon Trump. So here's another comment.
Good day, Mr. Ashraf. This is Agima Tebula. Yeah, Mr. Ashraf, when it comes to Donald Trump issue, Elon Musk issue, it seems like they are threatening the continent with sanctions of aid or those monies that they are giving to African continent. But I think as South Africans, we must stand firm and be us, be ourselves. We can never follow the gossips of Trump and Elon Musk. Those people, they want white people to remain white in South Africa. This is Agimate Bula, Mr. Ashraf.
Okay, another point that I think is very similar to the previous one. In fact, here's another comment on the Trump. Keep it to 30 seconds. Really, it's going to help all of us.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf Mafuta. Ashraf, I always say things go wrong when good people don't stand against it. Here we are faced with people with bad intentions to destroy this country and this continent, to blackmail South Africa. I think we are supposed to stand against that. I know those in leadership in this country would talk diplomatically, but as an individual, we are supposed to stand and fight against this. We are supposed to name what really it is. These are people from darkness. Donald Trump and his administration are aiming at destroying this country, and we are not supposed to accept that, Ashraf.
Okay, well, that's another opinion, right? So let me tell you what's happening. So we in fact, played a lot of the sound clips from that Dr. Mbuyiseni and Ndlozi interview. And what we'll do is we're going to get further comment with Professor Susan Boyson after 5 o'clock. So let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg Hoos.
Thank you, Ashraf. Minister speaks on repatriation of remains of SA soldiers and a weather warning for Gauteng. Good day to you. The Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, Angie Motshekga, says the remains of the 14 South African soldiers who died in the eastern DRC 2 weeks ago are likely to be repatriated back to the country, the latest by Thursday this week. They were expected back home on Saturday, but that didn't happen due to logistical challenges. The members who are part of the UN peacekeeping mission in the DRC were killed in an attack by the M23 rebels. The Minister spoke during a parliamentary debate on the DRC.
And Chair, I must say, from the latest reports, yes, indeed, the delay is very disheartening. Currently, from the reports we're receiving, that they are still in Uganda, undergoing all the medical processes, and which we also are pressing very hard to get our disease. We were hoping that we'll get them by today, but by the latest, we are told that Thursday they will be here.
Meanwhile, some political parties in Parliament have criticised both the Defence Minister and the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, about the deployment of the South African soldiers in the DRC. MK Party MP Edward Nchangila says former President Jacob Zuma, who's now the leader of the MK Party, had a better handling in deploying the Defence Force in the DRC during his tenure.
President Zuma played a leading role in safeguarding the political stability of the DRC in order to realize socio-economic progress and prosperity. We as Umkhonto we stand here today to make the following demands, directives on what is to be done. One, South Africa and all other African countries and continental organizations must continue to play a meaningful diplomatic, economic, political and military roles in the DRC with the aim of safeguarding maximum stability and economic progress.
The DA's filed papers in the Western Cape High Court challenging the recent Expropriation Act. The act was signed into law by the President last month. The party seeks to have the act, which it argues is unconstitutional, nullified in its entirety. Kani Mapanga reports.
The DA in papers, however, seeks, among other things, an order which will effectively declare the act inconsistent with the Constitution and invalid. To support this challenge, the DA raises several grounds, including the constitutionality of the process of adopting the act. In addition, the party will also raise that the act is quote-unquote vague and contradictory in several clauses, which according to the DA renders it unconstitutional. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Black Business Council's raised concern about the impact of the U.S.'s executive orders on the African Growth and Opportunity Act. The U.S. President Donald Trump recently signed an executive order cutting all aid to South Africa, citing massive human rights violations and concern over the country's recently enacted Expropriation Act. Last year alone, South Africa exported over $6.5 billion worth of goods to the U.S. under AGOA, benefiting industries such as the automotive, manufacturing, agriculture and mining sectors. The Council's Khaki Matabane.
It is concerning that decisions of the United States are taken like this based on uninformed data. And we hope that once we have had engagements with the United States and all the other allies of the United States, things will change. You are right, we have G20 this year. We're busy renegotiating the AGOA. And we had hoped that we'll have a compelling year for South Africa and Africa as well, because this G20 is a G20 for Africa. But these developments are worrying, and we hope sanity will prevail.
The Weather Service has issued a warning for severe thunderstorms expected to hit Gauteng today. Forecaster Lehlohonolo Tobela says storms will bring damaging winds, lightning, hail and heavy downpours. He says this warning extends beyond Gauteng, affecting other provinces as well.
Disruptive rain is expected over the northern parts of Limpopo, as well as along the east coast between the eastern half of the Eastern Cape into the central and the southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. For tomorrow, a scattered chance of showers and thunder showers will remain for the central and western parts of the northwest into most parts of Limpopo, as well as KwaZulu-Natal. If you'll be in Gauteng, expect an afternoon showers and thunder showers. An isolated chance of showers and thunder showers expected with partly cloudy conditions and warm temperatures.
Top story. The Minister of Defence says the remains of the 14 South African soldiers who died in the eastern DRC 2 weeks ago are likely to be repatriated back to the country by Thursday at the latest. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
In sports this hour, PSL looks to expel Royal AM. The Proteas lose by 6 wickets to New Zealand in Tri-Series. And unions make SA Rugby equity pitch. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Bloemfontein has a crash reported before Carr Street. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gululis Interchange. Edenvale Road in Germiston is slow moving at North Rand Road, and Steve Biko Street northbound in Pretoria has a crash reported at Vonderboom Pass. In KZN, the N3 outbound queuing towards Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle reported after Spaghetti Junction. The N3 westbound is queuing towards Cliffdale, and the N3 westbound also has a stationary truck reported before Carter Ridge exit. In Cape Town, on the N1, a veld fire reported at Hilberson Drive. The M7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound queuing towards the R300 highway. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road. Baden-Powell Drive has sand reported on the carriageway at Monwabisi, and Riebeek Street has a crash reported at Loop Street. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, we're going to chat to Professor Susan Boyson in a moment, just getting her thoughts on the Imbuyiseni Ndlozi position. Now, he's out of the EFF, right? Finish and clear, I suppose, isn't it? But what about Donald Trump? He's not, is he?
Ashraf, this is Peter here in Hartswater. Ashraf, Mr. Trump has already taken decision. We can say this and this and that, but the man has already taken decision. You know why? Because the people who went to abroad to him and tell him about the terrible things that are happening in South Africa, he offered them a refugee. You see? So Trump, he's got nothing to do with South Africa anymore. Because the people who gave them the information, he offered them refugee status. So where are we going? Let us leave Mr. Trump alone and do our things together with these people. Thank you.
Well, you see, you can't leave Trump alone. I mean, I hear you. You would like to leave people alone, but in this world of multilateralism, you can't just say goodbye to anybody, even when you don't agree with them. You just can't, okay? Unless you've created self-sufficiency as an institution, as a country yourself, and we know we are far from that. Well, this is the National Pulse.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Tell you what, just a quick one regarding the DRC. Now, you know, in Parliament today, different political parties are saying different things. Now, here's one. And it says, or he says, we must go and deal extremely and decisively with M23. You shouldn't slaughter South Africans and think it's business as usual. Let's go to war. Gayton Mackenzie. Right, let's get to Professor Susan Boyson, who's a political analyst from Wits University. Prof. Boyson, great to connect with you once again. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Thank you. Now, you've got this difficult task of not doing the interview with Ndlozi, but simply to reflect on that, right? What did you pick up from there? I mean, there's probably like maybe 4 key bullet points, I think, that would stand out for you, and I'm going to give you the chance to just maybe run through them for you from your side.
Oh, yes, several there. I think Ndlozi was very accurate in epitomizing this terrain as entangled. That one in a liberation movement block of South African politics, so to say, and the mutual distrust and contest there is between ANC, MK Party and EFF, and the paranoia that has gone with it. That is a crucial overall point for me, but also there is that I read between the lines from Dr. Ndlozi, that there's still a lot of uncertainty, I think, as to exactly what his next path, the rest of his political path is. He's approaching around 40 years now, and he certainly has a good few years possibly in politics left. And now will be a crucial time to ascertain that. We've heard that he's possibly going into academia. There are suggestions that it could be in the non-profit sector. There could be a lot of work, and he emphasizes that he could serve there. And that we also know that that is not a permanent path for ambitious, energetic politicians. So he would have to make his mind up in those directions. Also in the knowledge that in politics, people leaving the ANC, for example, other political parties in that area, they often end up in political wilderness. There are so many names that we can hear there, can be reminded of there. And so it would have to be a very closely considered decision. Should not Dr. Ndlozi go in that direction as well? So there are crucial decisions, and these decisions speak a lot about the nature of the terrain.
Well, let me run through some of them. Maybe the first part that he spoke about that is really telling is the fact that, he was obviously sidelined on suspicion of being aware, if not involved in the growth of the MK. If that's one thing. If not that, then at least being very aware that he kept shut, right? But he also made the point that he had a very unconventional hearing. That means he didn't go according to the EFF's
Yes.
norms, right? What does that tell you about not him but about the EFF?
Well, yes, the EFF really draws on a core pool of that once was very close-knit, of core leaders, Julius Malema, and around him primarily were Floyd Shivambu, Ndlozi, and to some extent Darlin Mpofu too. And those people have left, and there's a second grouping of people now gathered around Julius Malema. Maybe they will be more loyal in the short term, but it speaks to the nature of the party, so tightly controlled by Julius Malema, and not much space for other young leaders also to advance and evolve. And that comes with the nature of the party that starts out of the youth movement of another party, and there is just not a way and space for other people to advance into leadership if the core leader remains sitting there and sitting tightly and being a strong leader in the type of leadership that party asks for.
And of course, there was no official announcement.
Very closed options.
Yeah, and there was no official announcement for the EFF about why Ndlozi was not at that conference at the year end. I mean, all this we don't know where he is. That means
there was so much secrecy around that, and now what Ndlozi's interviews also revealed very well is that they weren't proper disciplinary hearings. Yeah. They weren't beyond rumors. They were really not clear-cut accusations against them. It was, if there is a case of party political constructive dismissal, this is really it.
Yeah. Okay, the other one that he mentioned, and he used the word entangle, which is a fascinating word. I mean, we tend to think of it more in terms of movies, but what did he mean when he spoke about entanglement between the EFF and the MK party? Because he spoke about that going on for 4 years, but significantly he also made the point that this entanglement, in fact, cost the EFF votes in the election.
Indeed. And to this web of entanglement between one can obviously also the ANC, but in terms of breaking away and growing, it was the MK and EFF there. And the MK, really, the EFF at the media briefing the Saturday after last year's election put that very clearly, that they had actually borrowed, Julius Malema's words, actually borrowed votes from the MK party in that period in the previous election, 2019, where the EFF had really grown. And so there was that mutual contest for support for votes in a terrain that wasn't expanding overall, except to the extent that they could eat into ANC support. And there are really not many guarantees that there won't be a correction again in future between these parties, and that's what ANC is hoping for, that they would regain from MK Party. EFF is hoping that they would still regain from the MK Party as well. And it's just a close pool of potential voter support. And the parties have to damage one another in order to grow. They are not really growing beyond that pool. And the contests within this pool are very tight, and suspicion and distrust very high.
Yes. Now, of course,
this EFF case shows that.
Now, at the time when it seemed pretty obvious that Ndlozi was being shafted out of the EFF, right, speculation was, well, he has to be going to the MK Party. Then the other was like, absolutely not. He does not trust Zuma at all, and he will not be going there, and he's confirmed that he's not going there. There was also speculation in recent weeks, as late as last week, that he's going to the ANC, right? So clearly he's not going to either or, right? But there would be no surprise of the numbers of takers, right? But from your point of view, considering who he is politically, are you surprised that he has gone for the academia political commentator route for now?
Not at all, because all of the possible choices, all of the alternatives to him that he's got available to him, it could be the ANC, it could be MK Party, it could be a new political party. Those all come with such disadvantages, no guarantees of good returns in the longer term. And I wouldn't be surprised if in due course he re-enters party politics. But in the meantime, I think it's a safe time to take some time out and develop more broadly. He's got a PhD from Wits University. He can probably do very well in that field anyway. But I think party politics is in his blood, really reading over his political career as it has unfolded. I wouldn't be surprised that it is just a temporary period out.
Now, maybe just the last point. It's been very interesting, no matter which side of the political divide or divides one may sit on, what has come across virtually across the board is that everybody admired his presence in Parliament, suggesting that his absence would be a huge loss in Parliament. In the same way one thinks about Naledi Pandor, for example. There's something very statesmanlike about how she portrayed herself. And here, for him, it was like, here's the sharp, witty guy with this unique way of doing things in a way even Malema could not do. Do you concur with that he's a huge loss to Parliament?
Indeed, he was a lively, witty, on the issue type of politician. Any of the other political parties couldn't leave the smallest gap, and he would pounce on it, and he would have a sharp intervention to offer on that. And that is a very valuable aspect to any party political or any political policy debate. If a person can come in and immediately interject and do something contribute something that's to the point. There are many examples of that type of intervention that he did. And yet he was also part of the intellectual core of the EFF, and he did contribute in that way as well. So he could link the quick, witty interjections with a broad, substantive base and good scholarly accomplishment on top of that. And not too many other members of Parliament come with that combination of skills.
Absolutely, I think you're quite right, and therefore he'd be missed there, but he's already up the ante regarding being the political commentator. That means for a long, long time, he hardly said anything in the Twitter sphere, but he's certainly doing that so now. And I'll just say this as we end up, Professor Boyson, that he tweeted yesterday with a picture of the representatives from, in particular, AfriForum. And when he said, when the year ends, let us hope the local publications will remember that these are the quintessential Mamparas and Mukhus of the year. So the commentator outside of Parliament, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. Thanks. That's what he's doing now. Prof. Boyson, thanks for your time. Much appreciate connecting with us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf.
There we are. Fascinating. I tell you what, I think many people are going to be drawn to his tweets, and ironically, it's tweets. Remember the X from Elon Musk, because he's going to have a lot to say, considering he hasn't said much for a long, long time. Coming up next, a slightly different tribute to the really sad passing of this brilliant South African nuclear scientist, Senamile Masango, right after this.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. This summer, SABC brings us together anytime, anywhere. Catch all the drama, entertainment, and sport on SABC TV. Turn up the volume with your favorite hits and shows on SABC Radio. Stream wherever you are with SABC Plus and join the fun at unmissable SABC events near you. From breaking news to moments that move us, SABC is your companion for every summer memory. Celebrate a summer of togetherness with SABC, your home for connection, entertainment, and inspiration. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So, tributes have been pouring in for South Africa's first black nuclear scientist and a really high achiever at that, Senamile Masango, who died at the weekend. I believe a very, very sudden death. I was quite shocked about it, right? Remember in September, and there's been glowing tributes from across the board of South Africa, just so many different people. Like, oh my goodness, man. Now, in September of last year, I, in fact, had a chat with Senamile in our feature we called Winning, right? So let's replay parts of it, because before the chat with her, we had a chat with Dr. Naledi Pandor, I think a week before, on the fireside chat, and that conversation with her provoked what came next.
I'm just trying to, because Lunga did tell me you may ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a young woman who's a nuclear physicist. Her name has just gone from my head, but she's absolutely incredible. And she's currently in Vienna, representing our country in an amazing conference on nuclear science.
Okay. I wonder whether, so we've sort of worked it out backwards that in fact she was referring to you, Senamile, and I don't know whether you actually WhatsApped the former minister to say, how did you forget my name on air?
The ministers, they interact with a lot of young people, and it's not for the first time. Former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor, giving me a shout out. I remember last year when she was debating her last State of the Nation address, she debated about me for almost 30 seconds, and I was very excited, to be recognized by the woman of valor and the minister who has integrity in this country.
Well, there you are. So maybe she should just keep your name written in a pocket or something, like permanently, so she cannot forget it when she name drops you wherever she may be, right? But it then brings me back to you. So what is it you do?
Senamile Masango is a nuclear physicist. She has done research at the international laboratories such as USEN in Switzerland. I've done research on at Fermilab, USA. I've done research at Canada, Trump, and my master's data was collected at Trump as well as my PhD data was collected at Trump, Canada. So nuclear space is more like an international field. So I couldn't perform here at home because of the isotope that I was studying. So there is why most of my data was collected overseas.
Okay. So in practical, how do you give practical expression to what you do as a nuclear physicist? I mean, so you obviously have to apply that to the practical world. What then do you do there?
So in terms of practicality of it, I'm not sure whether listeners know that I'm part of the South African Energy Corporation, where we do nuclear medicine isotopes, where we can detect cancer, and then again we can also use radiation to kill the cancer blood cells. So we have our own reactor here in South Africa. By the way, South Africa is leading in Africa in terms of nuclear science.
Okay,
and we are amongst the other great players around the world.
Oh, but that's fabulous, because, I mean, what do you attribute that to? To the fact that in some things, we fail miserably, and it's true, right? But in other things, like you've just mentioned, we're one of the leaders in nuclear science. So how do we get that right?
It's because of the rich knowledge that we have, and in these facilities, and we have like your A-rated scientists, the international scientists, of which I'm privileged to lead such a caliber of scientists as the chair of research and development at South African Energy Corporation. So I think they invested a lot in education. However, Ashraf, I'm concerned because most of the knowledge, the rich knowledge, is within the age, it's within the older scientists. That is why I always advocate for younger scientists that they must be equipped and be transferred with this knowledge. To be a nuclear specialist, it takes time, it takes years. Just because you have a degree, it does not mean that you are now qualified. You must be trained properly because our industry is highly regulated. So you have to do a training, like years and years of training.
And that's, just bits of the conversation I had with now the late, sounds terrible to say so, the late Senamile Masango. So she passed away over the weekend, sudden death, not too sure what the causes were, but just very, very sudden. And a brilliant, brilliant mind. So we played a bit of it. Go to our podcast, go to safm.co, or even Google it. Just Google the podcast that I had with her, not this one, the longer version, and you'll find it. Otherwise, go to the website, safm.co.za, and then just look for the category The National Pulse, and you'll find a podcast of all the conversations we've had. And if this is September, you'll pick it up there in September. Absolutely. Lots more to consider. By the way, I just heard some news regarding Donald Trump, and he's saying if the people of Gaza accept the deal where they can be effectively pushed out to another country as whatever deal he makes, they will have no right of return. I'm sure there's lots of comment on that one.
On that point of Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, I think he made the right choice by leaving the EFF. That political party doesn't allow anybody to grow. If Malema says that you are growing and then the people, the masses love you, and then he'll flush you. The likes of the secretary there and the other women who are there, they'll be kept there until Malema decides what to do with them. You'll also check them away. It's good for Mbuyiseni and the rest of who's this guy, Shibambu, and others who left to join MK party because there's no growth in the EFF. Thank you. It's all my Inflex stuff.
Interesting, I saw from Floyd Shibambu's Instagram account, he's got a picture of Ndlozi and he says, leadership. Okay. I don't know where that's all going to go to. I promise you, I don't know. Here's another comment.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi must just join the ANC, where he can find he can use his potentiality there. And I believe he can get a certain position where he can save the community, or he can save South Africa. Jacob from Germiston.
Thanks, Jacob. But I mean, at the moment, he's not going to any party. He's going into academia. I mean, he's got a PhD in sociology, so that's where he's going to use that. Future? I don't know.
Valuable athlete to any party.
Ashraf, great show. I'm so glad you're talking about this great man. For me, Dr. Ndlozi, I hope that he's not going to go into politics, but that he uses his mind and his experience so that he can educate the leaders in the political field that South Africa need. We need leaders who can think, who can work through all the necessary understanding, and I think Mdlozi has got that particular skill set, and it will be a great advantage to South Africa if he pursues that career. Thank you, great show, thank you.
Thanks, I really appreciate the feedback, and as you know, the show is a combination of myself and my producers, Keys, Temba, Vusani, who puts it all together today. Phineas doing all the controls, and we all make that together as a team, I can assure you. But I think you're right about Ndlozi. We know he's not going into politics, so your wish has come true. And how he uses his space now in academia and as a commentator, I think he could be, well, he's already been, but it's always been party political commentator. Now it's commentator for the country. And that could be a huge addition to the national dialogue, I would think. News headlines, here's Greg Coase.
Look at the headlines. The Defence Minister says the remains of the 14 South African soldiers who were killed in the DRC 2 weeks ago are likely to be repatriated back to the country by Thursday at the latest. The trial of 84 Congolese soldiers accused of fleeing advancing M23 rebels has got underway, and the Human Rights Commission says the ventilated improved pit toilets in the province of Eastern Cape fall below the safety guidelines of the Water Research Commission. More on that story and other news at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, on the N2 eastbound, add load movement reported between Riverstella and Albertinia. The N3 northbound in Limbro Park has a stationary truck reported after London Road. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a crash near Gululis interchange. In Pretoria, Steve Biko Street northbound has a crash at Wonderboom Pass, and Paul Kruger Street northbound has delays towards Lavender Road. In KZN, the N3 outbound queuing towards Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. The N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle after Spaghetti Junction. The M7 eastbound, a crash at the N2 highway. The M7 westbound queuing towards Belleville Road exit. The N3 westbound in Cliffdale, a stationary truck after Key Ridge, and the N3 westbound, a stationary truck before Carter Ridge exit. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards the N2 highway. The M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound queuing towards the R300 highway. The N1 outbound is queuing towards Okavango Road, and Kuburg Road northbound in Tableview queuing towards Blaauberg Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, Tumi, let's talk about, is it the 16th team that's not the 16th team, right?
It's on the verge of not being the 16th team. The Premier Soccer League is reportedly exploring possibilities to expel Royal AM. According to SABC Sport, the executive committee are looking to enforce a rule in the NSL handbook which imposes sanctions that lead to suspension and relegation under extreme circumstances. And this will mean that the Betway Premiership this season will then have to continue with 15 instead of 16 clubs. And this is one developing story. We'll definitely keep a close eye on it. Meanwhile, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola has challenged Jack Grealish to prove him wrong. Grealish has been eased out of Guardiola's first choice lineup this season, even though City have struggled at times. He impressed in the FA Cup, and Guardiola wants to see more of the performances that he produced, and the player should not be put off by the added competition.
I'm really pleased from Jack because Jack has this sense of the street, the player of the street. You know, today most of the players, they are, for our fault, the manager, they're so academic. You have to do this, you have to do that. Jack is the old players that come from, you know, to fight and these stadiums and the people shout he's there and he's a fighter. And I'm really pleased because last games he didn't play, mainly because especially Savinho on the left side make us incredible connection with Erling for the left foot, but the season still is open and I'm happy for the performance.
Still staying with football, Arsenal are hoping that Bukayo Saka will return from injury in March to boost their bid to chase Liverpool in the Premier League title race and go deep in the Champions League. Saka is with the Arsenal squad in Dubai and continuing his rehab there in what is a positive development. Saka has been out since undergoing surgery to repair his torn hamstring in December and is currently targeting to be an Arsenal comeback for the Champions League last 16 first leg on either the 4th or the 5th of March or their trip to Manchester United on the 9th of March. Then in cricket, New Zealand beat South Africa by 6 wickets and 8 balls to spare in the first ODI tri-series. Earlier, the Proteas were restricted to 305 for 6 in their 50 overs, with debutant Matthew Britsky becoming the first ever player to score more than 150 runs on ODI debut. And he says that it could have been even more special if they had won.
But like I said, now I think when you come up against two world-class players like that on a really good wicket, you know, there's not much you can do. I think the bowlers really tried their heart out. But yeah, in terms of me in the field, it was bleak. I definitely wanted to get the win because it would have been a little bit more special. But I guess that's how cricket goes. So we move on and hopefully we can get a win the next game.
Well, for the Black Caps, Kane Williamson top scored with 133, becoming the 5th New Zealander batter to score 7,000 ODI runs and second fastest batter to reach the milestone. So the win sees New Zealand advance to the Tri-Series final on Friday, which is a plus for them because Karachi, the venue where that game will be played, will be where they'll play in the Champions Trophy as well. And for the Proteas, they need to beat Pakistan on Wednesday, also in Karachi, and that is at 11 a.m. SA time to qualify for the final against New Zealand at the same venue. Meanwhile, in rugby, the Vodacom Bulls, Sharks and Stormers have reportedly expressed interest in acquiring a 20% stake in SA Rugby's commercial rights. According to News 24, the 3 local unions formed a consortium called Rainbow Consortium, and they submitted a letter to SA Rugby proposing an alternative equity transaction. The unions reportedly want a deal that matches the ASG proposal and assured that no transaction fees or commissions would be paid to third parties. And finally, in tennis, Novak Djokovic says that his leg injury, which shattered his Australian Open dream, is almost 100% healed, and he's ready to aim for his 100th ATP title in Doha this month. Now, Djokovic is now expecting to be back for the Qatar Open, which starts on the 17th of February, where he'll be hoping to join Jimmy Connors and Roger Federer by reaching 100 ATP titles. To be honest, I never thought that he'd be back this soon, but it is Novak Djokovic after all.
And I saw Federer with a guy called Siya
Kolisi, yeah, in South Africa.
Yeah.
I was just like, can I bump into them?
And Kolisi was at the cricket the other day, so they're clearly very busy people. Yeah. But listen, Dricus du Plessis was in Australia winning or defending his title, and as you know, that he had the Donald Trump T-shirt the day before, and then was asked about it, like, Trump likes champions, and then very importantly said Trump is doing really great things, which I must say, what's the right word? No, let me not use the word with PISSED. I'll use another word. It just freaked me out because I think it was tone deaf.
Yeah.
And I know his views from before, but in this week, at a time where your entire country is being questioned, it's like, who advises him? But anyway, he does what he wants.
For me, I think for me, I'm surprised at what Gayton McKenzie was saying.
Well, here's the one thing. I don't know if he said more because Gayton just spoke about war in the DRC now. He said we must go to war, right?
Yeah.
So he says a lot of different things. So this one here, he's got a picture, Gayton that is, of obviously Dricus now with the South African flag and saying, and this is now I'm quoting Gayton saying, a champion representing South Africa on the international stage entering the ring wearing the South African flag. I must now not support him because he did or said something I or you disagree with. You guys have gone mad. Well done, Dricus du Plessis. Gayton McKenzie, political sporting commentator on all things in the world. Our very own Minister of Sport and Entertainment. Okay, arts and culture and entertainment too. Yeah. All right. More sport from you tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Your goodbyes.
Yeah.
The Northwest Legislature Portfolio Committee on Community Safety and Transport Management, chaired by Honorable Freddy Sonakile, will host public hearings on Marine Oil Pollution Bill on the 14th February 2025 at Groot Marico Community Hall in Ngakamudiri Molema District, Mokopa Community Hall near Ventersdorp in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District, Utlanang Community Hall at Christiana in Dr. Ruth Somuti Mompati, and Sutelong Community Hall in Bojanala District. All public hearings start at 10.
Bahlabani Bantwa are confident they will triumph this battle to reach the quarterfinals. But Usuthu want to impress the green and white fans with a ticket to the last 8. This is the Nedbank Cup Last 16. Marumo Gallants FC versus Amazulu FC on Saturday, 15 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Right, by the way, we'll take your calls just now, as you know, from around 5:45 every day. We have this audience engagement as we get to the end of the show. But in the meantime, you may want to make a note of this. Now, this year has kicked off, and if you're like most people, well, you've spent more time researching resolutions than actually starting. Jim, that is, right? Meal prep, meditation, still deciding, all those questions. Well, luckily, getting your car covered online with Santam is faster than picking a resolution to stick to. It only takes 2 minutes. To switch, visit santam.coza. Santam, this is freedom.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy Moya hosts the SAFM Market Update. Jimmy, on the first business day of the week, what's moving markets today?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. I wish I could say it was something different, but it does seem that a lot of the rhetoric is still centered around the things that are coming out of the United States. There are some other movements, of course, that we're keeping an eye on, but when we look at everything, by and large, a lot of the sentiment is still being driven by the uncertainty around what's going to be coming out of America. And to prove that the markets are still uncertain, when you look at the prices of certain things, for example, the gold price hitting new all-time highs today, breaking above $2,900 an ounce, currently sitting at about $2,910 an ounce, and we'll get into some of those movements in a little bit. What we have coming up on the show is we're looking at that Trump conversation, in particular with how it affects AGOA and other trade relations for South Africa. We're going to be trying to explore some of the permutations of what these recent sanctions could mean on our side of things, but where else we can find alternatives and how we get around them and all of that. We're going to be speaking to an investment strategist from Old Mutual around that. Then we've got a conversation around Microsoft Office. It looks as though they are looking to start a new payment model, or they've started a new payment model effective the mid of January. So if you're renewing your Microsoft Office subscription, you might find that it looks a little different to how you've known it in the past. They're now moving to a monthly subscription model, and businesses and individuals alike might want to consider the implications of what this could mean. We're going to speak to a tech journalist around that because it's part of our tech feature, but also it's kind of a big news story when most people still use Windows softwares and rely on things like Microsoft Office for some of their key apps or is it platforms? No? Yeah, some of their key software solutions, rather. We're going to be looking at that. We're going to be taking a look at the impact that this change could have. And then we've also got a conversation around the SASSA Gold cards. We got word over the weekend from Postbank that we have until the 28th of February for those that have SASSA Gold cards to have those cards migrated and changed over to the Postbank Black cards. Effective the 28th of February, the SASSA Gold cards will no longer work regardless of the expiry date. Now, obviously, that's been quite an alarming conversation. It's been a conversation that's been happening for a couple of months now, and to suddenly have a deadline that is now 18 days away with a bit of confusion that might still be out there. We're going to speak to the Postbank CEO to try and clarify what's happening there and what the implications are for those out there that rely on their grants being paid or rely on accessing their grants via these cards. And then we're going to wrap up the show with a personal finance segment. We're going to be taking a look at the tax benefits when we're looking at retirement planning and how to maximize on retirement savings, but also on the tax side of it as well. Before we get to to that, as I said, let's do a quick summary of what's been happening. Markets closed in the green from a South African point of view, but by and large, equity markets were in the green across the board, with the exception only of the ASX in Sydney, which was down about 1/3%. All other equity markets were in the green. Hong Kong in the green by the biggest margin there, 1.7% in the green. Shanghai half a percent in the green. The Nikkei in Tokyo about 4 basis points in the green. European markets all in the green as well. The FTSE, the big leader there, 0.87% in the green. The Nasdaq 1.06% in the green at the moment. The S&P 2/3% up. Our own local markets, resources up 1.8%. Financials down about 0.2%. At some point they were up more than 1% as well. If we look at industrials, 0.13% down there for the day. The all share finishing the day 1/3% in the green, as did the top 40. When we look at the rand, gaining a bit of ground against the US dollar. $1 will cost you 18 Rand 40 at the moment. £1 British pound will cost you 22 Rand 80 cents. €1 is below 19 Rand. It is 18 Rand and 99 cents. $1 Australian dollar, 11 Rand and 57 cents. If we're looking at commodity prices, the Brent crude price sadly above $75 a barrel. Makes me sad every time I see that. $75.48 a barrel. Not much there, but about 1% weaker than where we were when we looked at this sort of this time last week. Platinum and palladium both above $1,000 there. Platinum the leader there, $1,040. And as I said, gold price new all-time highs. We're sitting at $2,909 a fine ounce, about 1.4, almost 1.5% to the green. But we did break that $2,900 barrier. So we're going to be talking about these. We're going to be looking at other movements as well and trying to make sense of them when we come back a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, Jimmy, great. You enjoy your show 6 to 7, and of course there's sports that follows thereafter. But it means it's time now for your calls, your WhatsApp text messages, your WhatsApp voice notes. Also time for your tweets. And if you want to send a picture of where you are, anywhere in the country, anywhere around the world, dial locked onto SAFM and all connected to the National Pulse, well, I want to see it. So why don't you do just that?
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, let me run through some of, there's in fact lots of voice notes that we're going to pick up on, so we should get through as many as possible. Here's one.
Hi, Ashraf. I'm praying that the ANC is planning to rope in Dr. Ndlozi. I hope the SG of ANC, Fikile Mbalula, does not become selfish. That Razmatesh, and he must get that doctor into the headquarters of that Dr. Ndlozi. We really need him, and I think it may be a great recovery for the ANC. Back to 51%. Thank you.
All right. Is that going to really happen? We shall see.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Trevor here from the Eastern Cape. Ashraf, why do we blame President Trump for cancellation of aid and for giving funds to South Africa? Where this morning on Ketty Show, one of the gentlemen said that up to the money that's been given by the US government that South Africa benefits from, almost all of it has been squandered, misused, and in inappropriate funds. You understand? Why aren't we talking about that?
I don't know what you mean, why aren't we talking about it? I think they're two different issues. Squandering is squandering no matter where the money comes from. That's not the reason why they're not giving them money. As you know, they've actually said so. One is the farmers, one is the what they call the Afrikaners under attack around expropriation. The other one, they've said, is the South African position regarding Israel or Israel versus Palestine at the ICJ courts. They've been very clear about that. That's it. Let me pick up that one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. We got our nuclear scientist and suddenly she passed away. It's extremely sad. Everything must be done to protect our scientists, nuclear scientists, because we've seen abroad in other countries how nuclear scientists are assassinated, killed, disappear. These kind of things are happening, and they don't want to see anyone other than the West, the West doing well in the nuclear field. Therefore, our scientists must be protected and guarded so that they don't get killed.
Well, I mean, nobody said she got killed. Just so they're making the point. We don't even know what happened. I believe it's just a very sudden passing away over the weekend. I don't know more. We have not heard more. Lots of speculation. But protecting people, all human beings, I mean, that would make sense, doesn't it?
Hey, Ashraf, when a nuclear physicist dies, there must be an investigation. Thanks. My name is Bongi.
Thanks, Bongi. Well, there you are, confirming what the other person before that has just said.
Good evening, this is Derek from Mklanga. I just cannot bring myself to respect any politician that is a member of the ANC or the EFF or the MK party, because they have and are aware of such dishonest activities that have taken place in their midst, and they are involved in corruption, have been or are currently.
Right, point made. And of course, what we have on this show is often there's a great divide of different views on so many different things. It's what makes the show, doesn't it? Because it is the national pulse, and in that moment we reflect exactly what the pulse of nation tells us. So what's your pulse rate telling you now?
Now we can see how pathetic, how hypocritical, how shameless Donald Trump is. Yesterday he was building a massive wall against the Mexicans to keep the Mexicans out. Today he's opening floodgates from AfriForum, and their kings. Ah, what a shame. Silas Johannesburg.
But why are you surprised about Donald Trump? I mean, seriously, you know what happened in the previous election when they lost, right? What happened to his supporters and how he was drumming up support to storm Capitol Hill.
Good afternoon, guys, SAFM and listeners. This is Luzugo from Cape Town. Guys, when it comes to the issue of Donald Trump, I think it's high time now we as Africans, we stand firm and implement our strong belief and bring all the expertise in terms of how to run the businesses of government and everything. And I think also we have to recheck our allies as a country so that we can not only be in the same settle of these people. This is Luzugo from Cape Town. Thank you.
Okay, let's get another call on the Trump issue from Isaiah in Soweto. Go for it, Isaiah.
What I got here as Trump is that they said South Africa in the Bible is going to formulate a crushing program for the whole world. I heard this nation for the last 50 to 48 something years. They said South Africa is going to formulate a crushing program for the whole world. You see, but now
But where you said you had it for 60 years. Did I hear you correctly? What you say?
I said I heard this message of that South Africa is going to formulate a crushing program for the whole world, but I get it from the Bible.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So where in the Bible did it say so?
Yes, travel and I'm too far to fetch it. It will give me some time.
All right. Okay. Well, there you are. I wonder if anybody else may know, and they may have further comments about it. Isaiah, thank you for that. Right. We have another comment from Peter in Northern Cape. Hello, Peter. In fact, we'll get to Peter in just a moment. Right. We've got to too quickly. There's more comments naturally on Donald Trump.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Afternoon, South Africa. I just want to weigh in on Donald Trump's posture globally. Is he replacing multilateralism, in particular the United Nations? Is the United Nations becoming irrelevant in the eyes of Donald Trump? Because what he's uttering, like his position in Gaza, totally defies legality and rationality. I'm not sure as to how the world is going to approach it. Major from Gotham.
Well, the world don't really challenge the USA, do they? Because of many, many reasons. But yes, the USA's used its veto, and therefore, as has been discussed by many people, they perpetuated injustice in many parts of the world. Maybe the latest one without one part is what's happened regarding the attack by Hamas on let's call them civilians within Israel. That's one thing, and you can't defend that if that's the case. The second part is then what happened next. So you destroy an entire country, and they very clear they're supportive of it no matter what. I mean, that is as late as last week. It's not my words. Right, now we can go to Peter in the Northern Cape. Go for it, Peter.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, to you and your listeners.
Thank you.
Two areas that I want to talk about. You asked earlier 2 words to describe the young man.
Yeah.
I've never been an EFF supporter, but I acknowledge talent and competency, capability and capacity. I think that young man has a lot he has a bright future in politics, Closey. Dr. Closey, let me give him his recognition. And the EFF, I think they made a terrible blunder in letting him go. The manner in which they let him go, but that's synonymous with the political parties in our country. We love to isolate those who are strong enough and have different views from us. It's not only the EFF that is guilty thereof, all political parties, especially the progressive revolutionary ones. Secondly, I want to talk about the Trump populism. I hear that there's a case made against the EFF that from Elon Musk saying that they should be banned from traveling abroad as well, and sanctions should be imposed. The same argument goes for Donald Trump. I mean, he's the same populist, misguided leader. When he lost the election, he rallied a whole country against the government of the day. Fortunately, the EFF leaders have not yet done that. They speak their voice, but I can't say that they have committed treason in the manner that Donald Trump has done in his own country. We should just learn to accept that he's got 4 years, 4.5 years to go, and then it's a new administration thereafter.
Okay.
I don't think Americans will give the Republicans another chance.
Okay, you're not the first person to say so, which means even if they institute, let's call them sanctions against South Africa in some form, that will be overturned by the new party. In that case, it would be the Democratic Party, if you're talking about 4 years. Thanks for that, Peter in the Northern Cape. Interesting thought about the DA. So, they now have initiated legal proceedings signed by Helen Zille, right, to challenge the Expropriation Act. And they're very clear, the DA is saying, and I'm looking at their tweet, the DA will oppose the act to the bitter end, as we believe the act undermines constitutional principles and opens the door to power abuse by taking people's properties away without compensation. The DA is committed to defending property rights and will fight this in court to protect all South Africans. In terms of that legal challenge, there's a whole lot of respondents, and the first respondent of the many is the Minister of Public Works, who is from the DA. Yeah. We are living in an amazing country.
Ashraf, make Africa great again. Make South Africa great again. We've got Elon Musk that's got Donald Trump's ear. We've got Tony Els that plays golf with Donald Trump. So I don't know why we've been so anti-Donald Trump and anti-Elon Musk. We should actually partner with them to make South Africa great again. Vince, Cape Town.
Vince, I don't know what you're trying to say. I mean, we should give us an example of what you mean by like how we so anti-Trump and we're not. In fact, they anti-South Africa. Maybe you should think about that. We're now responding to their anti-ness. But how should we partner? Tell me. In fact, we're already business partners with the Americans.
It's very few and far between. We have seen government really put programs in place to house people in a dignified manner. They think by just, turning the other way when people build these shacks, they think they're doing people a favor. But actually, they're making sure people stay in that state of want and reliance. It's a sick, sick world we live in, I'm telling you.
Okay, and there's more comments, message. I don't want to speculate, but we also have to understand the effects of radiation in a nuclear environment. Okay, got that. Ashraf, this is Majetla from Moremari Park. Donald Trump is no different from some of the tin pot dictators around the world. His behavior is bordering on lunacy and arrogance. The EFF is really pushing Dr. Ndlozi back to the ANC. The EFF will regret this, coming from Z from Ironside in the Val. Ashraf, this matter, now I've run down that one. Tommy says South Africa and America are in a trade deal. Both countries benefit. If America is picking its tariffs on our products, there is no reason for us not to do the same. South Africa must protect its sovereignty, I think it is just spelled incorrectly, and take the stand like any free land in the world. Let's start out reducing our dependence on these people and start looking to create more trade relations around the world. Trump is not South Africa's father, and he will never be. And there's another one with a South African flag sticking out there, which is really cool.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, to the team and the loyal listeners across the country. Ashraf, please, how did you get the details of the nuclear scientist? Because Dr. Naledi Pandor, who was on the Fire Chat show, couldn't mention the name of the lady. But how did he go to know about the lady? Can you please inform us? May her soul rest in peace. These are the type of women that a country needs to celebrate. I wonder if the president is even aware of her existence prior to her death. Perhaps we could have celebrated before her untimely death. It's Bramoro in Bloemfontein.
Thanks, Bramoro. Well, how we got to know is because immediately once it was mentioned, even though she couldn't remember the name, she mentioned Vienna, she mentioned what she does. We already had listeners calling. It's like, it can only be her, Sanamila, it can only be her. And then we double-checked it, and then it was confirmed. And then, of course, we spoke to her. Sanamila, it's like, yes, it is me. And the minister tends to forget names, but she didn't forget where she was at that weekend, by the way. Okay, that's the show. It's the National Pulse, and it is 24/7 all throughout, even when we're off air. So thank you for being a part of it. I look forward to engaging you tomorrow from 3 to 6. It's 6 o'clock. Now, here's Greg Host with the news.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Minister speaks on repatriation of remains of SA soldiers and concern over Eastern Cape pit toilets. Good evening. The Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, Angie Motshekga, says the remains of the 14 South African soldiers who were killed in the DRC 2 weeks ago are likely to be repatriated back to the country by Thursday this week at the latest. They